going to go ahead and call this meeting of the Mojave County Board of Supervisors to order. We're going to start with invocation by Pastor Bill Franson, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would please stand.
Take care of the problems and take care of the challenges that come before them, Father, that it'll be pleasing to the county and it'll be pleasing to you. Father, I just pray that you just put a special blessing around each and every supervisor as they do their job. And I just pray, Father, for each and every person that comes before them to speak. Father, give them calmness that they'll be able to put their petition before them. We just thank you, Father, in the name of Jesus. Amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Board of Supervisors may by motion recess into executive session to receive legal advice from the board's attorneys on any item contained in this agenda pursuant to ARS 38-431.03A3, 4, and 7. Looking for a motion to call for an executive session to be held June 5th, 2023 at 9 a.m. for discussion and consultation with legal counsel in accordance with ARS 38-431.03A, 3, 4, and 7 to discuss items noticed on the agenda with an asterisk.
So moved.
Do we have a second? Second. You've heard that motion and second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes appear to have it. Do have it, so order. Official business to come before the board. Attorney Esplin, discussion of pending or contemplated litigation?
Nothing to report, thank you.
Thank you. Committee and or legislative reports. Supervisor Bishop.
Yes, I attended the Drug, Gang, and Violent Crime Control Program Committee meeting in Phoenix, and also the County Supervisors Association LPC meeting. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Supervisor Angus.
Thank you. I also attended the CSA meeting, and the budget has been signed. There's some good news and bad news in it, and I'm sure we will have Craig Sullivan from CSA come give us an in-depth report, as well as probably our legislators will come and take their victory laps, and we'll talk about it then. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Gould.
Nothing today, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Supervisor Johnson.
Nothing today.
Thank you. And I have no report as well. Lobbyist report from High Ground. Madam Clerk, do we have Nick Ponder on the line?
I am here.
Mr. Ponder, good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Again, thank you for the opportunity, and to the mothers on the dais and in the audience. I hope you guys had a wonderful weekend. So as was stated, the budget was passed last week. Feedback. Sorry. Okay. The budget was passed last week. I think up until the actual day that it was passed, there was a lot of questions about whether or not it was actually going to happen. The budget was passed out of appropriations committees on Tuesday. The Senate did it early Tuesday morning. The Senate then waited until after midnight so that it was technically Wednesday, which was the third day that bills had been posted, to ultimately vote on the budget. The reason that they did that is that they were going to be missing members after early Wednesday morning. So by around 4:30 or so in the morning on Wednesday, they had finished up the budget. As was indicated, there are some good items in there. I will highlight the Mojave County items specifically, even though not all of them are related to water. In particular, 3.4 million for Mojave Wash recharge basin. We were asking for 4.37. We ended up getting 3.4. In my communication with the county, that will just, the lower amount will just affect the size of the basin and how much will be able to be recharged per year. State Lake Improvement Fund received $5.2 million. Mojave County Sheriff's substations, 9 million. Sheriff mobile command vehicles, $500,000. State Route 95 turn lanes in Bullhead City, $8 million. And Lake Havasu Bridge, $35.5 million. A total of $61.6 million that I've identified in just those items, specifically for Mojave County. One additional item that was provided in way of water was $5 million to Department of Water Resources for basin planning. You may recall at the governor's State of the State address, she highlighted that she would be asking for $5 million to consider the establishment of new AMAs and INAs where they qualify to preserve Arizona's groundwater. This falls in line with that desired statement during the State of the State. Unfortunately, we haven't received up to this point the support of the governor's office, at least outwardly. Inwardly, we have. Outwardly, though, not as much on groundwater stewardship area legislation. And we will be pushing for that throughout the rest of session, whatever limited leverage is available now that the budget has been passed, and going forward. And we continue to have communications with Attorney General Mays on both groundwater and river water. And she seems to be a clear advocate in our space on those issues. I believe I highlighted this at the last Board of Supervisors meeting, but she did send a letter to the Department of Water Resources on April 17th, identifying that she did not believe that the Department of Water Resources was following the law pursuant to identifying whether or not basins qualified for active management areas. And therefore, she's asking for more information from the Department of Water Resources as to why they haven't been following the law in her mind. And she cited Arizona Revised Statute 45-412 related to AMAs. So I think we will continue the ongoing conversations with Attorney General Mays going forward and pursue opportunities for water legislation. Lastly, I'll point out that the governor announced, not last Monday, but I believe the Monday before that, the makeup of her Water Policy Council. Despite the fact that Executive Order 4 said that she wanted local government leaders on the Policy Council, ultimately there were no individuals from local government named to that council. I think they ultimately came to the concern that if they named one supervisor or one mayor, that they would need to name many. And so they instead sort of ignored that piece of their executive order. However, there are many groundwater advocates on the council. I would say, though, that one disappointment is that on the governor's council, this governor's council, there was an allowance for Gail Griffin and Cynic Kerr to be named to the council. And as we know, they have been our major obstacles to getting legislation through. Our hope is that their the simple fact of them being on the council will not deter from other people on the council weighing in on groundwater legislation, similar to how they've weighed in with us recently. So I'm happy to take any questions. That's what's transpiring. I will also say real quick that the Senate and the House will be voting on a bunch of bills today. The thought process is after they do that, they will recess for a couple weeks because they have members who are out of town between now and the end of the month, and then they will come back. There's also been a theoretical posed that the legislature will stay in session in perpetuity in the event that they feel they need to come back and vote on something and not rely upon the governor to bring them back to session. The one downside to that is that any legislation that has passed will not become effective because it does not become effective until 90 days after sine die or the end of the legislative session. So happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
Thank you, Mr. Ponder. Questions for Hydrant? Mr. Ponder? You guys feel like you're at a wrestling event or something?
We get the end. Okay. I'm sorry, I can't understand.
Or can I? I can't even understand myself. So what I was going to ask is, we're all familiar with the Hassayampa Basin report that was released by ADWR at the beckon of the governor, which basically said that, you know, Gilbert and that entire valley to the west was short about 4.4 million acre feet from their 100-year water supply. I think she mentioned also, the governor, in a meeting not too long ago, that she was going to be perhaps releasing or instructing the release of another report on the other side of the valley, Queen Creek, a little bit of Pinal County, and that report was also going to be not very rosy. Is that accurate?
Yeah, so first, just to clarify, the West Hassayampa covers Buckeye. It's everything west of the White Tank Mountains that remains in the Phoenix AMA. So that one was released early January. At the McCain Institute in Sedona last weekend, the governor did indicate on Saturday that she would be releasing in a couple weeks a new report on groundwater. All speculation is that is what's called the East Salt River Subbasin, which includes Scottsdale, Chandler, Tempe, Mesa, Gilbert, Queen Creek, and Apache Junction. And again, the speculation is that report would be similar to the Buckeye report. None of us have actually seen it, though, other than the folks in the Department of Water Resources. But there have been a lot of inquiries about it. And I do know that locally, the lobbying entity Valley Partnership has been in conversations with the governor's office. I would presume about that, but I don't know for sure.
Thank you. And the reason I brought that point up is it's just another thing that in rural we need to be aware of, because now we will have both sides of that valley that is short on their 100-year water supply, and they're going to be looking for water. River water that was left on the river or groundwater, but we have to circle the wagons, I think. So.
And Mr. Chair, I will add that we will be having a conversation next week on river water with the governor. And I think that the supervisors would have interest in knowing that conversation will be happening.
Great, thank you. County Manager's report.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, board members. No report today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I am going to move up item number 55 before we get to call to the public, so we can get that business taken care of. I have a motion. discussion.
Chairman Lingenfelter,
Supervisor Angus.
we're talking about item A.
Item 55A.
Okay. I make a motion that we approve the reconsideration of item 53 from the April 3rd, 2023 Board of Supervisors meeting.
Second.
You've heard that motion second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
No.
Guys appear to have it, do have it, so ordered. Item 55B,
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor Angus.
I make a motion that we set a public hearing on June 5th, 2023 to consider to deny the adoption of Board of Supervisor Resolution number 2023-063.
You've heard that motion. Do I have a second? You've heard that motion second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? You guys appear to have it, do have it, so ordered.
It was aye.
Now we'll move into the call to the public. Crystal Truby. Crystal Truby.
Hi, good morning. Crystal Truby. So I would like to address some information that you might find of interest. The Mojave County Zoning Ordinance, Section 25, page 59, regarding special development or SD zone.
Ma'am, we just handled that item, so I'm not going to take public comment on.
Okay, I found more information on documentation written and distributed by the developers of the Lakebound project.
Yeah.
If you don't allow us to speak, then I'm just going to put it all over social media. So you can either address it and let us speak when we've driven all this time to come here. I appreciate you revoting, but either way, the information's going to get out. So it can either get out properly or it can get out in other ways, and it will.
Ma'am, I'm not trying to stifle the information you're sharing. What I'm saying is the thing that we just did was a process thing, and we've set a public hearing for June 5th, 2023. That would be the appropriate venue for
But
you
the
to come.
call to public allows people to talk. That's what this is about.
Call to the public allows people to talk on things
I
that are
have
not.
listened to people talk about things that are completely crazy, and I've sat here patiently and I've driven hours. I've spent money. I've taken time away from my work, time away from my family, and I have information to give. If you don't let me speak, I'm going to post it all over social media.
I understand what you're telling me. Let me ask one question. County Attorney, as I understand the law, we don't allow people to talk, call the public on items that are on the agenda. And what I'm saying is the thing that we just voted on sets a new public hearing for June 5th, 2023, where we open up the public hearing. We're going to have 3 calls
I'm
to
aware,
speak.
but if I have information to give you that's going to maybe help you before to prepare for June 5th, because I don't know if you've been given some of this information, because if you have, then you've been misleading us. So I want to present what I've found, and I have every right to speak. Lawyer, do I not?
I'm not going to answer the questions of you, okay? I represent and
sure,
advise the board, so I want
absolutely.
to make sure that
Yeah.
I talk to my board, okay?
Right.
So there's nothing in the law that says that she cannot speak on something that's already on the item. That's not in the open meeting laws or anything like that. It's a rule that we have made and we've followed in the past, but it's just a rule that this board has made or has had in the past. My suggestion would be have this person speak and be done and move on. That'd be my
Okay.
recommendation.
Thank
All
you
right.
so much.
Go ahead.
I'm going to start over 3 minutes. I would like to address some information that you might find of interest. The Mojave County Zoning Ordinance, Section 25, page 59, regarding special development or SD zone classification states, the zoning proposal must be acceptable to the commission and recommended to the board. I also have obtained documentation written and distributed by the developers of the Lakebound project, which state their true plans. They state their objective to build 500 man cave RV sites, contrary to the 180 submitted on the zoning application. They state their concert venue capacity of 20,000 people, not a small venue by any means, Ron Gold. They state plans to establish exclusive VIP rights to the boat launch in our town at the nearby Topak 66, which would all but eliminate our local access to the river. They falsely state that sewer infrastructure is already in place. They anticipate the completion of the concert venue and initial man caves within 1 year from a direct result of the 6 years that they have spent fostering relationships with all the Mojave County government and reviewing agencies. And to top it all off, on official state letterhead, Representative Leo Biasucci applauds the developers and highlights tax and investment incentives in a blatant PR attempt while conveniently omitting his personal financial involvement in the Lakebound project. These documents prove that the concerns of the citizens of Golden Shores and Topak have not been exaggerated by any means, and that they need to be heard and addressed. And anyone involved in trying to push this obscene plan on our community to get rich or advance their political careers will be called out and they will be held accountable. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, ma'am. Joy Bancroft?
Good morning, Joy Bancroft from Topak. Good morning, Chairman. Thank you very much for bringing 55 forward at the beginning of the agenda. I would like to speak to the Sheriff's Department. And wait a minute, sorry, I lost my notes. I just want to bring up the fact of a couple things in Topak related to Sheriff's Department, and I'm hoping that your budget isn't completely done yet, and you will seriously consider that $1.5 million for the Sheriff's Department that they need to go forward with helping to retain sheriffs and bring their salaries up to speed with other departments. I'm very involved in Neighborhood Watch, and to my knowledge, the only Neighborhood Watch meetings or that are together are in our community. And the last 2 years, with the attention that the Sheriff's Department has given us, especially Lieutenant Salvino and his staff, we have seriously cleared up local criminals. We have gotten rid of them. They've gone to jail. We've gotten rid of drug dealers. You can't imagine how different our community is. It's no wonder that it looks appealing to other people and maybe developers, but it's, they have spent a lot of time and a lot of attention in our community. We have also worked with code enforcement with the help of the Sheriff's Department helping to get rid of some of these local criminals. We've worked with code enforcement and Tim Walsh's group. We've cleaned up buildings and dangerous buildings in our community. We've abated buildings, and we've kind of rid that whole community of what I call derelicts. My favorite word is they're derelicts. And they run the streets and they create more lawless things. They deliver drugs. We've gotten rid of drug dealers. So I just want to say that the funds are really important. I've spoken to a sheriff recently, and I understand that in Lieutenant Salvino's staff, they're dropping like flies. They're going on to other departments. They can't afford to work here, and we're going to see this a lot differently in our community, and we're going to be impacted by this if we can't get more money in the budget. So please reconsider giving Sheriff Schuster the money that he will need. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, ma'am. We have a 10 a.m. time set for item 50. Director Mournian, you want to come down? Good morning.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board. This is just an annual presentation by the county's auditors and the Office of the Auditor General of the state of Arizona, presenting the county's annual audited financial statements as required by statute.
Great.
Ben, are you on the line?
Yes, I'm here.
Please go ahead.
I was just gonna have the Catherine Wood from the Auditor General's office start the introductions for this presentation.
Thank you, Ben. If I may share my screen. So good morning, Chairman Lingenfelter, Board, and Mr. Elders. My name is Kathleen Wood. I'm a technical manager in the Arizona Auditor General, and on behalf of the Arizona Auditor General, we appreciate the opportunity to meet with you today and to meet with Ben Hur and Fester and Chapman CPAs joining us to present the county's fiscal year 2022 audit results with you. So thank you for having us. Before Ben presents the county's audit results, I wanted to explain our role as it relates to the audit. First, I wanted to provide a little bit of background about the Arizona Auditor General. We are a legislative agency made up of nonpartisan staff. We are an independent source of impartial information related to governments and programs. And although we are accountable to all 90 legislative members, we directly report to a small group called the Joint Legislative Audit Committee, or JLAC. And that is a small group of legislative members who are appointed, 5 by the state Senate and 5 who are appointed by the House Speaker. And as you may know, the reason for our meeting today is because state laws became effective in September of 2021 that require the board to have the auditors present the audit results to you each year in a regular meeting without a consent agenda, and that has to be done within 90 days of the audit's completion. We think this is a great opportunity for us to meet with you as well as your contract auditors, Fester and Chapman, to discuss any questions you may have on the audit. We can discuss the work performed or any findings or any other questions you may have. So we are responsible to audit Arizona counties or cause them to be audited. And in this case, we do contract out audits, and we do that to accommodate our staffing levels and any other legislative requests that we get. And when we do that, we look for quality CPA firms who have knowledge about how Arizona counties operate. And in this case, we contracted with Fester and Chapman, who will be doing your audits through fiscal year 2023. As part of our involvement in the audit process is that we provide direction and technical advice as needed to Ben Hur and his group regarding the audit. And we also review drafts of the reports before they're issued to make sure they are conforming with applicable standards and that the audit opinions are consistent with the financial statements and any findings that are reported. So the county essentially undergoes 2 audits each year. You have your financial statement audit and your federal compliance audit, and these are done at the same time. The financial statement audit includes the auditor's opinion on the financial statements to say whether they are accurate. The federal compliance audit is also referred to as a single audit, and that is required to include your financial statements in that opinion, as well as any reports on internal control and compliance. And the county's schedule of federal awards is also included in that report, and the auditor's opinion on that. And then finally, the auditor's opinion on your compliance with certain federal programs that were selected for the audit. And one final thing before I turn it over to Ben, I just wanted to mention that when your reports are issued, we send you an email and we include some links. So one of the items we link to is a document called the report highlights. We also link to your prior year's reports. However, this report highlights just provides a snapshot of the audit and your financial statements. For example, it gives you an idea of your primary revenue sources and how they were spent, certain financial highlights and the financial position effect, as well as a summary of the findings and recommendations. And then finally, we include a link to some other resources you may find helpful. So with that, I will turn it over to Ben. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Catherine. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ben Her with Fester & Chapman's. Thank you for the opportunity to present the audited financial statements for the Mojave County, Arizona for the fiscal year ended June 30 of 2022. Before I start my presentation, I would like to extend our appreciations to the county's management and then the finance departments, especially for their full support and assistance for the completion of this audit. Mainly, this presentation is have three sections. First part, two sections with three reports. First part of the presentation is about the audit result summaries. The second part of the presentation is a financial overview driven from the audited financial statements. As mentioned earlier, we have formed the financial statements audit for the Mojave County for the fiscal year ended June 30 of 2022, and we issued a modified opinion on their financial reporting, which means financial statements are presented in fairly in all material aspects and in accordance with the GAAP. We also reported there's one findings such as significant deficiencies in internal controls over the county's financial reportings that is related to the year-end closing process for the county. Again, when the non-federal organization entities receives more than $750,000 of federal assistance, it is single audit is required. So we actually have performed a single audit on certain major program selected as below for two testings, Mojave County's compliance with those specific program compliance required. These are programs we tested, the one housing voucher cluster programs, and then COVID-19 emergency rental assistance program, COVID-19 coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds, and then aging cluster programs. We didn't have any deficiency in related to the internal controls over major program tested. We do not report any findings related to the major program tested. Third report we have communicated was report to the Board of Supervisors. This is including all the required communication from the auditors to the auditees, just basically describing what happens during the part of the current year's audit process. One thing we actually noted here is there was a new GASB standards 87 leases were implemented during the process and reported it as part of the county's financial reporting. There was some sensitive and estimated disclosure information included in financial statements. We actually have noted that as part of our communications. We did not have any difficulties encounters during the performance of our audit, or there was no disagreements with the management during our audit process. Again, we also kind of pointed out there was one significant deficiency in finance reporting was noted, included in our audit results sections of the financial statements. This part is the second part of the presentations. Like I mentioned, this is summary of financial information driven from the county's financial reports. As of the June of the fiscal year ended 2022, county has reported total asset and deferred outflows about like $550 million. And then also reported the total liabilities and deferred inflows about 200 millions, which resulted in county's net position about 351 millions. As part of the revenues for the counties during the 2022, total of $196 million of revenues reported. Out of that, $58 million came from property taxes, roughly about 30% of the total revenues for the counties, and then another $50 million came out of the state share taxes, and then another $50 million operating grants and contribution, which is roughly 26% for each. Again, expenses for the counties during 2022 fiscal year, and this county has spent roughly $167 million. 34% of that expenses were related to general government and then another 30% of the other expenses were public safeties, something like this. So this is a end of the prepared the presentations. I'm happy to answers any question you have.
Thank you, Mr. Hurd. Questions for the audit?
Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you give me the timeline you worked off of?
Excuse me, can I have your question again?
Can you give me the timeline that you worked off of? You received our information when? You sent us information when? You finished the audit when?
So the timelines of the audit process usually starts, the year end is about July of each year when we actually start communicating the requested information for the audit preparations and then for the testing of controls for our audit plannings. And then we actually came out in November, and then we also came out in January and then do the field works to testing those transactions and the testing of single audit program. And then we finalized the issue both single audit report and the audit financial statements information at the end of March.
All right, it seems like it's taking a little longer. I agree with that you do it in July and then usually in December, you send it back to us for your findings and then corrections. Is that correct?
Yes. So the reason we start with July is before we actually start the whole audit process, before we actually have actual information, we just kind of auditing it. We just kind of like as part of the plannings, we just kind of like to see how the counties is doing certain transactions, understanding organization, understanding controls of it. So that was going to give us enough time to plan it out. Then when we actually came in the November, normally we actually performing the single audit. So for the county, these times we actually tested about the 6 different major programs, which is kind of special works for each one of them. And then then we conclude for that of the single audit. When we came back in the January, we actually just started working on the financial section of the audit. So after that process, and then we're just going to have the drafted financial statements, and then we're just going to be using that information to finalize concluding the audit. So normally the whole audit process depends on it varies, depends on the size of the organization and the complexity of their transactions. Usually turnaround time is like 3 or 4 months. But like I said, if we excluded the July part when we started early for the planning of it, it's probably just kind of fits into the what we did. We started like the whole process, actual process in November and ended it in March.
Yeah, I was just curious because the only backup we have, it says that you sent it on March 30th and we answered on March 30th. So I was just curious about the timeline. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Supervisor. Any other questions for Mr. Hurd? Hearing none, thank you for your presentation this morning. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Oh, we need to vote, right? Yep. Looking for a motion?
Motion to accept the Auditor General's report.
Thank you. You've heard that motion second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes appear to have it, do have it. So ordered. We will resume call to the public with Mr. Rick DeShazer. Dishinger. Thank you, sir.
That's not an easy one. Rick Dishinger, Topak, Arizona. First of all, I'd just like to thank all of you for bringing item 55 forward and for a positive vote to put it forward on the June 5th agenda. Much appreciated. Next thing I'd like to do is give you some good news. I know you all enjoy those times. I've dealt with a bunch of folks here at the county level, and I can only tell you that every time it's been professional, it's been complete, concise, clear, and we really appreciate that. I know you as the employers would be proud of the people that you have representing you. We appreciate it, and I just thought I'd mention that all my dealings have been very, very positive. On that note, I want to lead into the professionalism at your sheriff's department. I find Mr. Schuster doing an excellent job. We have, as Joy commented about our neighborhood watch, we have a sheriff, lieutenant, and a officer show up to our meetings. I don't know how many entities in Mojave County have a relationship with the sheriff's department like we do, but they always come very professional, answer questions that we have, and actually take notes and kind of work on things together. So I just want you to know that that relationship is there, and a lot of that is due to him. We have also felt a huge effect in a positive way of what's happened in our town in relationships to crime and having a peaceful community. The retention of your sheriff officers, I am sure, cost the county a huge amounts of money for training. As an educator for 4 years, we would train teachers over and over again. And if we didn't allow them to have a livable salary, they left. Now, all that training, the HR, human resources portion of it, interviewing, getting people in, training them, getting them certified, that costs money. Same thing with the sheriff's department. I really believe that you would save money in the long run if we would be able to retain our officers. And 99% of these folks are great people. We're getting people out of the armed services coming in, and we're also getting some people from other agencies where they're not affording their people, and we're actually be able to hire them, but we need to keep them. But I just wanted to let you know that professionalism across the board is excellent, and our town appreciates it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Randy Perry.
How you doing? My name is Randy Perry. I just got a question on the budget. You guys are saying you're going to be $2 million over budget this year, and by the end of 2025, you're going to be 15 million over budget. We're going to send you back to, accounting 101. You had $40 million of excess money that you each gave each one of you, I think it was $5 million to spend in your districts. And not a one of you thought to think about a rainy day that you're going to need some extra money, in the future. And you all spend it on your little pet projects. Did you ever think about maybe putting something away? There is going to be inflation, there's going to be other things you can't cover, but yet you're going to have a shortfall. It's not the way you run a business, and the county is in business. All right? Second thing is, on the roads here, when you have companies tearing up roads or putting in services, which we all need, we all have, they can't do little patches. Because they do a 4-foot patch, you go by it a week later, it's sunk in and you got all these potholes. Make them do a bigger patch, make them do it the right way. Have one of you just travel down Keno Avenue. I know that's in the city, but it's still a county road. Travel down Keno Avenue, it's basically a one-lane road anymore with all the potholes. Northern's getting that way. You go down Stockton Hill Road in Northern, hell, I've had to pull my truck over twice. I thought I had a flat tire. That's how bad the roads are. If my vehicle has to be roadworthy, your roads need to be vehicle worthy. That's all. Have a good day.
Thank you, sir. C.L. Rosendahl.
Good morning. Thank you for letting me speak. I wanted to mention the road conditions on Route 66 from the I-40 to Highway 95 in Fort Mojave. Exit 1 off I-40 is often closed due to flooding. We have damage there right now, which is above the Serrano Nursery. That has a temporary fix, and the next rain we get will probably be washed out again. I hope you can bring attention to this as it causes huge problems within our community of Topak and Golden Shores. Our residents are so afraid of a development that has been proposed and how it will drain the resources in an emergency since these roads are closed very often. Route 1 heading out towards Topak towards Courtright Road in Fort Mojave also closes very often and sometimes can be cleared within a day or two. I hope the county can increase the budget for road repairs properly on these highways. I want to thank you very much for your reconsideration of the vote that you just did on the Topak rezoning. And hopefully you guys can vote on June 5th in a positive way to affect our community. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Art Schlesser.
Good morning. Thank you for your time. I'm here on a personal note. My home is going to be directly affected by this proposed Mineral Park Solar Park. And there's 4,000 acres they're going to take and put in nothing but solar panels. And my home is right in the center of it. RENRG, that name will come very familiar to all of you, is the company that is doing this. They basically have done a plot plan where there will be solar panels right to the edge of my property, 10 acres. I don't even know if my home will be livable. They will destroy it. I just hope that the board can look at this and protect the land. This isn't necessary. I don't believe in it, even in a little bit. I spent 25 years of my life working for Southern California Edison Company in power production. And so I look at these solar arrays and I realize that they're temporary and they are not efficient. They are not good ways to make power. If you took the whole country and tried to run it on solar, it would be impossible. If you don't have a generator to maintain the cycle rate on electricity or one close to a city, it will not operate. So here I am. I moved to my home in 1997, bought the property in 1990, and it's beautiful. I love it there. It's solitude. I have no neighbors. It's gorgeous. And now they want to destroy it. And I just feel it's going to be a blight on the land, and I just ask for your support in trying to stop this project. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Don Martin? Or Martin or Marin?
Good morning, Supervisors, Lincoln Felter and Board. My name is Don Martin, and I live in Kingman in District 4. I am here today to speak on the solar projects that I am sure you are aware of that are being proposed in Mojave County. On March 20th, 2023, local rancher Brenda Stockbridge spoke to you about these impending projects during her call to the public. On March 27th, 2023, local rancher Lisa Carter had a meeting with Supervisor Bishop advising of the adverse effects that the Mineral Park solar plan would have on her ranching operations and her home. I received a call from Art Fuller, who you just heard from, about the Mineral Park solar plan and how it would adversely affect him and his home and property, which, like he said, is located almost in the middle of this proposed project. On 5/8/2023, I received a text from Supervisor Gould, who said he had met with the developers of this project in his area about 2 weeks prior. I did some research and found there's not just one project, but 3 major projects being proposed for Mojave County. That in total, those 3 projects will encompass over 11,000 acres of public lands that have historically been open for public use for recreationalists, hunters, 4x4 enthusiasts, wildlife watchers, and folks who just enjoy the great outdoors. And speaking of wildlife, as a conservationist, I consider wildlife to be Arizona's most precious natural resource. And to lose 11,000 acres of wildlife habitat is definitely not acceptable. You are the representatives of the people of Mojave County. And since in America, government works for the people and not the other way around, it is imperative that you respect and reflect the people's opinion on if they think these projects are a wise and responsible use of these public lands. One other thing, I did some research on RENRG partners who are the proponents of 2 of the 3 solar projects. On their website, under International Development Experience, it states, quote, developed solar projects in partnership with such companies as Toshiba, LDK, SPI, China Development Bank, and TANCO, a European state-sponsored fund of funds company. These are projects that, if done, will forever change the landscape of Mojave County. I don't know about you, but I don't want to see Mojave County along Highway 93 and in Mojave Valley look like the road that goes through Henderson, Nevada right now with acres and acres of sterile solar panels. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Armin Stance.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Supervisors. I was here a couple of weeks ago, and in my neighborhood, still, Tony Caruso, living on 4391, is starting a junkyard. Nothing has been done. In the meantime, he pulled in a motorhome, has people living in there. It's getting ridiculous. Then the other property, 4365, that house has been reported to the building department as a dangerous building years and years ago. There is no roof for 11 years on that house. There is the awning falling off in the last windstorm. People are living there in, I would say, after the rain, in black mold. That's ridiculous. Why is the house not being condemned again? Then we have 4359 South Cavalry Road. The house is in Ryan James' name, CO Betty J. Messner. Betty died 4 years ago. How can you put a house and care of Betty Messner when she's dead? This is impossible. We have 4476 Cavalry Road. There's 5 or 6 trailers in the backyard where he has his employees living. How that happened on a single family property? We have 4349 South Cavalry Road. Just got raided by the Sheriff's Department. Whole bunch of night crawlers got taken away. They're back in double force. That house, the owner, as far as I know, died. Why are people living there? Now they pulled another motorhome in and all sorts of cars where people are living in. We have 4360 South Infantry. Their property doesn't have any power, any water, no septic. There is probably 3-4 small children living there with no electricity, no water, no septic. And they have a ton of motorhomes and trailers sitting there where people are living in. Those are sub-conditions that shouldn't be happening in our times. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Jennifer Esposito.
Jennifer Esposito, Kingman. At the last meeting, I encouraged you to table the rate increase for the Golden Valley Improvement District water issues. I wanted you to review the nearly 2-year-old meeting where I was promised that not only did we have the money, it was budgeted. It was budgeted for 2022. That's what I was told in August of 2021, which means the money was there and you had allocated it. And then you approved nearly $800,000 more in ARPA funds, in COVID relief money, to go towards that project. Now here we sit nearly 2 years later and you're saying, well, we don't have the money. I want to know where the damn money went. Did it go to lawyers? I mean, you're talking about litigation, right? Did you spend the money allocated for the well on attorney's fees? I don't know. I think the people deserve to know. But I was told, and I asked you straight up, if this project goes over budget, are the ratepayers going to pay for it? So I don't know if I was lied to or just bamboozled or placated or what. But if you had the money budgeted for 2022 for that well, and then you added 800,000 more, and you burned through that, and I was told that the well project had already begun. It was already underway, it already started. So here we sit 2 years later, we don't have a well, and you raise the rates, which was really incredibly stupid, because you didn't look for any other grant money. You said you could use further ARPA money. You said you don't have any other way to pay for it. I know how you can pay for it. At that very same meeting 2 years ago, you approved a project for the same District 4 funds. Oh, I believe it was over $1 million for a COVID vaccine van. Why don't you sell that vaccine van for $1 million plus and use it for the well? Because at that meeting, you said that there would be further ARPA funds and that you could use further ARPA funds to fund the well project. You owe those people in Golden Valley a well, not a rate increase. It's incredibly stupid. You probably just bankrupted the GVID, because all people have to do that haul their own water is drive across the highway and put quarters in the machine and get it from Valley Pioneer. Now, Valley Pioneer, being a private corporation, could not raise the rates unless they went to the Corporation Commission. You see, they have something called oversight, something that everyone else was asking you about. We need oversight. The only thing that I can see is that you have completely breached your fiduciary responsibility to the people of the GVID. Where did the money go? They owe an answer to that question. And why is it that you need to punish the people who haul water? Now, what you don't know is that the water haul people had already gotten together and talked to Valley Pioneer. Valley Pioneer is completely open to working with them. So if the water haul people take their business to where it's cheaper, because that's what a free market does, if they drive across the highway and they get all their water from Valley Pioneer, and then the little water haulers drive their little trucks across to Valley Pioneer, then there's no income, and you just bankrupted the district. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Wayne Hollins?
Good morning, Wayne Hollins, Golden Valley. Again, speak a little bit about water. The reason why I picked the Veterans Park there in Golden Valley to make into a water harvesting park was, number one, it's just wasted land right now. And number two, it's very visible to the members of the community. So if we do something out there to have a water harvesting thing, they can see that it works and what it can do. At 10 acres, if we get just an inch of rain, is 271,000 gallons of water. So in a year, if we just get the 5 inches, that's over 1 million gallons. And I just seen an article the other day saying that Mojave County, over the last 5 years, have averaged 9.8 inches of rain. So that would mean double that amount of water just on that park. So if you take the other community parks, there's 35 acres, an inch in rain is 950,000 gallons of water. But they're the same condition as our park is. So that's why I suggest doing something, not just talking about it, but actually doing something. And obviously not all at once and not without help from the community, because I think the community, they live there, it's their park, they should be willing to put in some labor to help that. And then solar panels. Hear a lot about the solar panels and people not liking those. I don't particularly care for them either, but it's the future right now, but there's a lot of going on about the solar panels and doing agrivoltaics, which is growing crops and stuff underneath them. You raise them up high enough so you can farm or ranch or whatever you want to call it underneath the panels. And now you're making electricity, making money, you're making a product. The cows can still eat, the sheep, whatever you want to run out there. Heck, you can run chickens out there. You can grow crops all underneath there instead of having a monocrop. And they're doing studies on what the solar panels does, and it's similar to what a tree does, except it doesn't transpire the water as well. But if you're growing stuff underneath the panels, it will cool the panel, which makes more electricity because the panels are cooler. So if you're considering solar, I would consider agrivoltaic so you get more than one crop off of that land and it doesn't sit there sterile underneath there. It'll actually improve the soil underneath there. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Paul Darvin.
Thank you, Supervisors, for letting me speak on the Topak situation. I have a photograph here of our recent road situation we had to deal with during the rains. I don't know if you can display it or not. And this was the actual rainy day. And then the next day is the big hole that our young lady was talking about earlier, where you couldn't even drive through the road. It was gone. The half the road was gone. So I don't know if you can make that out. It's kind of hard to see. There we go. Anyways, it was just kind of ridiculous. It turned into a river. And if you're going to want to put a giant RV / concert venue in, this is what they're going to be dealing with, because the roads are not passable at these times. This is the hole. This is the hole that resulted, that took about 4 days for them to repair. So I don't know how a concert venue would work in our area. The other thing I need to mention, and I've already passed out to the clerk copies so you could all have it, is on the value that is going to be affected in a negative way. I was a licensed real estate appraiser for many years in California, and when you put in these tin huts, it's only going to bring down the property values. Therefore, you're going to bring down your tax base. It's going to affect the existing properties in the area, which is going to bring those down. So you're actually going to be reducing your tax base over time. So I just wanted you to be aware of that, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Did you want these photos, or?
You could give them to the clerk if you'd like to.
Thank you very much.
That concludes call to the public. Supervisor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This state law allows me to address criticism following call to the public. Earlier speaker commented that we were short-sighted because we did not hold back ARPA money for a rainy day. The ARPA rules do not allow us to hold back money, and they don't allow us to supplant money that would be spent in the regular budget of the county. So that was just some information to share. Also, on the solar plants, there's a BLM Zoom meeting at 5 p.m. This week on the 18th. You can participate in that. They'll talk. It's a hearing over the proposed solar outside of the solar designated area. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor. We have one presentation this morning on the community cleanup event held April 29th, 2023 at the Surbat Landfill. Director Walsh.
Chairman Lingenfelter, good morning, board. Thank you for this opportunity. I'll make this fairly quick. See if I can see. I believe it's this one here. If I may, I'd like to invite up to join me Gamby Disposal, Nucor Steel, and I believe Wayne Hollins. And I don't believe Bulldog Disposal is here today, but March 26th, the board approved a Surbat landfill cleanup to be held at Surbat Landfill. We are cruising through slides. Let's see, give me 1 second. I believe they're getting me set up here. All right. We'll go up to the top. All right, here we go. March 26th, the Board of Supervisors, you all approved the community cleanup at Surbat Landfill and accepted a donation from Nucor Steel in the amount of $3,000 and another donation from Bulldog Disposal to be determined based on recycled material. We had an outstanding turnout. Our typical Saturdays, we will see about 75 customers. This Saturday, we received 371 customers. We collected 163,000 tons of, we'll slow that down, 163 tons of trash. almost 17 tons of that were tires, so about 1,300 tires, and 3.82 tons of metal, which was recycled, for a total cost of just under $6,000. So what that came out to, the total cost was just under $6,000. The metal that was recycled, we received a donation from Bulldog Disposal for that for $573. And then the Nucor steel donation was $3,000. So total county cost was $2,360.04, which is being split between erase and environmental quality abatement funds. Again, here's the participants. We had Nucor Steel sponsor the event, Gamby Disposal threw all their people at it to make sure we had a successful event. Bulldog Disposal was there and accepted metal for recycling. Wayne Hollins showed up. I think he was one of the first ones there, and he didn't leave till the end of the day. Great help in helping us out. We had the sheriff's posse there. County Parks was involved, Erase was involved, and then staff from Environmental Quality was there to make it a success. If I can, I'll share just a quick video. It's a time lapse of the event. See if we can make it go. But we had quite a few cars stack up, and luckily we didn't make it all the way back out to the 93. But from what I heard, the wait time, the most that they had was anywhere between 45 minutes and an hour waiting to go in and haul that trash there. But it was really a great success, and we hope to be able to build on this in the future. So again, thank you to the board for approving this event, and thank you to all of these folks that came and helped make this a huge success. So.
Thank you all for your participation. We'll move to the consent agenda. Supervisor Bishop, would you like to remove any items from the consent agenda?
No, thank you.
Supervisor Angus?
Not this morning.
Supervisor Gould? None today, sir. Supervisor Johnson?
No, Mr. Chair.
Entertain a motion?
Second.
You've heard that motion in second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes appear to have it. You have it, so ordered. Move into our regular agenda this morning. First item is item number 48. Dr. Kingsley from the Department of Public Health. Morning, Dr. Kingsley.
Good morning.
Please proceed.
Let me pull up the past present. Good morning, Chairman and Board. So bringing to you this morning a few different proposals for us moving forward with the One Arizona distribution of the opioid settlement funds. So just an overview currently where we're at, as well as the rest of the 43 states that entered into this litigation. Of the 43 states, only 3 have received their settlement funding. Arizona was the 3rd state awarded. Our attorneys, or the state attorneys, worked towards that so that unlike other states, we would have access more promptly to these fundings. And so as part of their settlement, they worked towards that. So in that perspective, what I'm seeing also across the nation is obviously these 43 states are looking towards this money that will be coming in over anywhere from, for the next 18 years for them. So there's a lot of chatter, I would say, a lot of think tanks being put together, a lot of summits. How are they going to proceed? What is it going to look like? So there's a lot of thought on this going throughout the nation. Also seeing it here as well as a state level, spending wise. There have been some organizations, again, that have been looking at existing methods and programs and to employ new approaches. But again, this is something that's relatively new or unprecedented, and so there's still a lot of talk on it. Of all our 15 counties, only 3, including us 4, have actually made any movement. All the rest have not done any expenditures or really are just in the beginning phases of the discussion. Maricopa, they have haven't spent the majority of their funds. They allocated $1.5 million for correctional health, and then they offered $2 million for an RFP for community agencies. And then internally, they're going through a community health assessment with substance use surveys. So they're taking some of those fundings to do the assessment and further surveys for it for their community. Yavapai, and I put a little note in there, $11 stamps. So in speaking with the health director there, she said that they spent 2 days speaking with the Attorney General about $11 for stamps. So it's not going to be always as cut and dry. So I think we always need to verify with state attorneys about expenditures to make sure everything's okay moving forward and done correctly. But they approved a $100K salary for a section manager to oversee the money as well as any processes with it within the county. Then they also awarded their local agency their $250,000 to Partners Against Narcotics Trafficking. And they've been, this PANT has been their primary community agency they've gone to that they've been discussing and really having, looking at their community, which is the best way to employ this money. Pima, they put, for Narcan, they put $180,000 with establishment of an advisory committee with funding for support staff. So again, looking into how are they going to support staff as well as the nonprofits, and also working with this advisory committee pulled from the county on that. So really, these are, besides us, we're the 4 counties that have moved towards recognizing and planning towards it. Others are just even entering the planning phases of the other 15 counties. So a slower process, which I think works in our favor. Currently, what we have right now, the money that we have available is $932,000. For our primary distributors, $534,000, from Janssen, $336,000, and Malincroft for $62,000. So this is what we have available to us currently right now. So our strengths, just a quick SWOT. Our strengths is currently there's no annual deadlines or pay downs, so we are able to do carryover, which works favorable. And I believe that is something that's really going to occur over the next 3 to 4 years as states begin to receive the money, but many of them are unsure, but they're not pressured, and they so allow us to be able to go at a slower pace. I believe we're leading the way and giving some great examples on what we're doing, similar here in Arizona as well as within the nation, but allowing us to really be thoughtful and mindful of this money and how to apply it. There's the Mojave County existing infrastructure that we use to really spend the money correctly as best we can within the community, instead of large investments in staffing or infrastructure and into that. So we have that existing. And then it's also, this is a Board of Supervisors direct control. You guys have the direct control over it. You don't have the sometimes frustrating contracts that you get from federal government or from state with different points. So I think it's a great opportunity for the board over the next 20 years and stuff to be able to manage this without as much complications. And so for us to be able to meet the needs within here, our county. Weaknesses, which we'll be bringing up, but we don't have a clear fiscal year budget on it, how to manage it. Approval of programs. There is a variety of abatement strategies and programs that exist out there, but really what's going to be most appropriate for our county. Procurement, staffing, grant administrators, if we went an RFP route, while Maricopa and Pima has the staff that exists for that, we historically and do not have that if we went that route. And then again, the support we have internally on processing this and managing it right now is current weakness and precedence really for doing this. But opportunities, what we have correction, law enforcement, service providers, nonprofits, healthcare, behavioral health, law enforcement, first responders, be able to reach. And I think, not putting it all into one bucket is an opportunity really to help shore up the many wonderful organizations we have in our county. The threats overall that we have with this are, again, saying here is predominance if we put it all in one place. And that's what a lot of the attorney generals from the state advise, that, it's easy to drop it into law enforcement that deals with many of these things, but, it's going after the root problem and being able to address it on all points. There's possible caps and prioritizing that we're gonna have to watch for on certain points within spending wise with cost reimbursement and the internal cost as well for us, as well as nonprofit organizations. And there's also double dipping. So strategically, there's a lot of grants out there for opioids, and it will be challenging not only for us, but for nonprofits and for-profits, that if they have these grants and this money's here and it's doing the same thing. So we have to be very aware of those situations so to make sure that we're managing the money correctly and not paying for things doubly. So first action would be kind of an opioid plan. So I would like to suggest putting a fiscal date following that of the county. So it'd be from July 1st to June 30th, and it would be the Mojave County opioid budget. So it'd just be setting up a budget year from July 1st to June 30th. And there'd be 2 days that we would always come to you. Would be the May, June would be when we'd come to you and you decide that for that next fiscal year, this is the budget for it, and this is what's going to be put forth to spend during that time. And that would help us align with that. The reporting and evaluation that I think would go with that would be in November. So in November, we would come to you. So the annual report will come out in September from the state. Everything is submitted. And then the state is to report in September, October, how the monies were spent were across the state. So that in November, Mojave County Department of Public Health would come to you with that report, as well as any indicators for the county that would affect our budget as we go into our budget planning. If it's the indirect costs or any salaries or anything that is affected with it as during this process, we can present it in November, as well as any community proposals could be brought then, as well as May. And obviously the flexibility anytime any of the board members wants to bring somebody in outside of these two ranges, that's at the board's discretion. I just wanted to have a better set plan for for us as a county to be able to come to you at least twice a year, November, beginning before our budget year, and then just to approve the following year any renewal of contracts that you guys decide. If we are to allot money to this one organization, we'll do it on a yearly contract, and then we can always come in May, and the board can decide if they want to continue renewing that contract or if they want to go another direction. But that could be brought in May, and so those 2 dates, November. So overall explaining that, and then indirect cost for the county, which is allowable under Exhibit A, Part 3, J4, but proposed 7%, and that is direct county to report, record, and recuperate ongoing indirect cost. That would be within the financial department, within attorney, within my department, of any of the processing fees that we do to manage this over this. So this would be the first motion or recommendation, discussions of the board's discretion, how you'd like to proceed kind of for a budget year, how we manage this.
Thank you. I don't believe we had that slide in our presentation. I really can't see it. And I think it's an important one.
Chairman Lingenfelter, Supervisor Angus, that was the last one I had received in my email,
Sorry.
so that's what I printed this morning. I believe it was changed.
Yes, it was. It was updated. Sorry, on Saturday. The one that I sent out on Saturday was the final update to it. So,
Okay.
sorry about that.
Okay, that's okay. I'm very confused. It's going to take more for me to understand this than
Okay.
a simple thing. But thank you for starting the process. I do have some questions, but they're specific questions. Like
Okay.
in your presentation, you highlight like the quality of life court.
Yeah.
And that being a recipient. Why was that chosen over like our drug courts or our Hope Treatment Centers? I mean, was that just an example, or are these your recommendations?
So currently right now, so we're going to move into that next on the presentation, and the part that I just wanted to try to sectionalize it out so we would just try to help the flow of the presentation. And that'll be the next part of the presentation, the quality of life court. So I can answer those questions now, or I would just recommend we defer that. Here is just, I want to set up how we function, how we always bring information to you, and aligning it to a fiscal a fiscal budget year to that July 1st to June 30th, if that's appropriate.
Dr. Kingsley, why don't you go through your entire presentation and then we'll get into discussion with the board, please.
Okay, all right. So then this would be, so that would be the setup of how we would, the Mojave County Department of Public Health would help to coordinate and make sure that it's aligned with the board's desires, and also would allow us to have that November, May type of reference for you during that time for management and proposals. So next is the first these are the current first proposals that have developed. Again, this is as listening throughout the state and coordinating with the other public health directors and really watching the other 43 states. And so it is a slower process right now. So, but these are the proposals that were brought forward. The Quality of Life Court project was brought towards the county. It was presented to us. So this is the one that was brought to us. This is really the first organization in the county that came forward for a proposal. Again, open for any of those proposals that come in, but this is the one that was brought to us. There's a lot of them out there that we've looked through and over, but I don't have a clear process of who do I approach and who do I not approach on those points, or if anybody has approached you on those points. So this is just what was the Quality of Life Court project that was brought to us. They're requesting $211,000. And again, if we set a fiscal year, then that would be from July 2023 to June 2024. It would cover a Mojave County Sheriff's Office caseworker, so 100% of time in the Quality Life Court. It would coordinate the referrals, the reentries to Lake Havasu City and the city of Kingman. An inmate with opioid or substance abuse disorder would have that case management specific. They would be there with them at all of their presentations, at all of their court dates, would work on their mental health, and would provide the trainings into them so that when they left, it would help cut down recidivism. They would attend also the quality of life meetings and hearings. The other financial part would go to peer support. These would be the individuals on the outside once somebody is released. They would dedicate their time to helping that individual meet their probation, as well as other meetings, and also observe any things that are required of that of being part of that program, such as the accountability through being monitored for compliance for the EverHealth or the SCRAM, which is the drug testing to make sure that they're being compliant. And then travel for the annual Arizona Drug Summit in Phoenix for the peer supports. And then the indirect cost of 10% and with cost expenditure provided down. So again, this would be for them from July to June. Does it qualify under the settlement? It does on many points on Exhibit A, B, C, but the strongest would be Exhibit D, address the needs of criminal justice involved persons. And then Exhibit J, also leadership planning and coordination for those points. So today we do have for the Quality of Life Court, those that have been administering it. So they believe they have more than a year, almost complete success rate of individuals that have gone through and have not re-entered or been convicted or found of committing the same crimes of drug possession or trafficking. And then, so this would be a second motion. This would be motioned to provide them a contract for $211,000 for the year, for them to be able to manage the cases of those within the court system here in Kingman and Lake Havasu City, with the support of both cities on these points and for those points. So this would be the first proposal. Second proposal, and you're not going to have these slides in the second one, sorry. So we're going to have to follow up here on here, would be for a total, this would be from Mojave County Department of Public Health for leadership planning and coordination, and it would be for up to $36,000. I'll do my best not to spend that, but just be able to provide, again, so with a contract that would be delivered to, I believe the contract would be similar to ARPA, the our attorneys here would deliver the money through a contract. But then during that year, it would have to have the, a county administrator. So that would be my department, would meet with them monthly. There would be a leadership and a community health education specialist. What we would work for is not only monitoring a grant, but also on the side thing, working up so November that we can come to and be able to provide further development of this. One would be providing currently we have it's called My Sidewalk, where we present much of the county information. Would be one, going and seeing what the cost would be to develop a opioids page so that we can monitor it and be transparent throughout the whole process of providing the numbers of individuals affected by opioids within the county, tracking it, any information or data that's provided by any of the contracts that the Board of Supervisors provides to community organizations. It'd be development of that. Second would also just be providing I believe one of the more economical ways of us being able to spend as least money within infrastructure or indirect costs to be able to provide these services and a monitoring of this within our communities through our staffing. So recently the OD2A grant across Arizona was in risk of not being renewed. And so we're going to see that too, I think, a lot strategically over the next few years. Are there going to be more grants, or are there going to be less grants that previously they were? And so currently right now we've been awarded, so we are the distributor of Narcan for Mojave County. So the state delivers to us. So we cut down the wait time for any organization that is requesting that, to have that present, from our first responders to our law enforcement to any business organization that needs the training or just needs the distribution of it. That would have been affected if we lost that. And so this is just a way to also be able to make sure that we're always able to provide and have a foundation, that it wouldn't affect the general fund budget if something were to happen for any type of control or management of these monies. And also, as seen with the other counties, them, making sure that they have a staff member to be able to provide the services that are needed throughout the oversight and development of reporting and transparency. So it would be, for over the next 6 months, spending up to $36,000. That would be the limit. I don't think we're going to spend up to that, but be able to provide for the salaries. If it would be 10 hours a month on, we have 3 staff. Currently we have a community health education specialist senior, as well as a community health specialist in each one of our communities. And they have worked directly with OD2A education, the summits. They have been to, really the face of opioid support systems that we offer as a county to organizations out there. So just being able to use their subject matter experts within our community to be able to, if we hold any meetings with any proposals or any organizations out there, to evaluate or to provide you with any type of evaluation, as well as scoring that how effective this program is, just be able to use them, utilize them on a limited basis. We would have to clear it with the grant, just making sure that we can do split funding there, but it'd be no effect on the general fund. So just looking to be able to provide that as creating the foundation of how we move forward and what's the best way to economically do that. So there have been a bunch of meetings that have been popping up, from travel to summits and conferences because of this money, which is a challenge to our funding as well, to fully participate and understand everything going on. So this is, again, these just the support systems that would be able to provide for the next 6 months, so that we can come to you in November and say, this is, this is really where it's moving towards, and these are recommendations for the board for Mojave County Department of Public Health on this. It qualifies under this in Exhibit J for leadership planning and coordination, to support the efforts to provide leadership planning and coordination to abate the opioid epidemic through activities, programs, and strategies that may include. And so it's those there, which is one of creating a dashboard, which is regional planning and support, which we would do with our community partners, and then support our staff in the collaborating across system, creating a cross-system coordination in our abatement, and then provide staff resources for the oversight and management of the abatement programs. And so this would be the other motion or full motion or for just up to 36,000 for Mojave County Department of Public Health for the leadership planning, coordination, and oversight of these monies for the county. With those two programs, if awarded, that means there would be an estimated carryover of 685,000. So then that when we would come, if we did the fiscal year, when we came in May, then we would have 685,000, including any of the funds that were awarded during the year. So we could have over $1 million up to almost $2 million, depending if we're awarded close to the same or at least $1,500,000. If we have that, and if we want to bank some of that again and hold it off to a year, then we can get up into possibly capital investments, whatever the board would want to, but that carryover would be, I think, ideally doing more than 50% carryover for the next few years would allow then a longer sustainable route in the long run in a few years down the road once the rest of the states, the nation kind of there, but if we identify something very specific here within our community, it'd allow for that. So I think the 685,000 is a great carryover for the year on these two, and being able to carry that to like the next fiscal year, or if anything pops up during the year that you guys would know this sum would be here and be available for the board. So it allows for that flexibility of allocations and development if anything pops up during the year. If not, we would have that, including anything we received during the year for the next year to be brought to the board. And so overall, those were just the presentation to come back and the proposals for it. So do you want me to jump into answering the question real quick? So I don't know if it was answered there for the quality of life. That's what was brought to me through the county. It was brought to the county manager, and so a county manager brought it to me, and this is the proposal that was brought on for the quality of life court. Judge Huerta is here too, and he's able to answer any direct questions about the
Kingsley.
QLC.
Supervisor
I
Angus?
just have a follow. So you said it was brought to you. Did you have any kind of process where you asked the community? I mean, I don't understand how that was decided and who makes the decisions. Because you talked about the quality of life court, and you just mentioned Lake Havasu and Kingman.
Yeah.
What happened to Bullhead City? So it sounds like this is, being funded, at least this first part, into that area. But I haven't heard anything from, I'm sort of in that, I have ears out in that community. No one has said that they've heard from the county to get any sort of proposals. And correct me if I'm wrong, when we first voted to enter the lawsuit, we said that the money, this board, when we accepted it, said that it was going to be used solely to treat the end user. Am I kind of paraphrasing that?
Yeah.
So I don't want to lose that.
And I agree too. And I looked into a type of cost reimbursement where basically, we'd almost become like a Medicaid where we could just reimburse every single organization out there. But that, again, we would have to pay staff for that. So that's the thing. So the reason also I haven't been able to, because it's just been me on my time alone to be able to, and I didn't even have indirect costs, which is fine. That's why I'm hired. That's part of my salary. But, on my time and also manage all the other things is that can I really, put on and host, all these things within the community. And really, we need as much as I completely agree, as much as we can, get it to the end user. But there is an operational cost to this, and everything. So that's why I'm just trying to create a foundation. That was the challenge of, okay, we have this money. And then it's also what's been challenging for me, or vexing, I would say, is that what's going to be the right choice? And there's so much discussion going on out there. Oh, we should do this, X, Y, Z. And it's so new. So many other states haven't even done anything. And even in Arizona, everyone's kind of, what do we do? And even the other 3 counties have only done an advisory committee, or they're just hiring somebody to try to do that because we don't have any specific funding that we can't use our current grants for OD2A or anything because they're specific to those grants. So I can't do that, so I'm kind of in a bind that I don't have the staff to support it to do it, but I do, but they're on different grants. So that's the challenge.
My only concern is that we don't reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
Because there are so many even what I'm seeing here that you asked for, I know so many nonprofits that already do it. The idea that we're going to send people to conferences and, that kind of...
That stuff,
is that stuff that we don't need. So we have an opportunity to be real leaders since no one's really done this. So I think we really have to be careful And since the board had interjected itself that we're going to be the final, you know,
Yeah.
I don't even know if I'm ready to make any decisions today.
And I just to have, if it's okay, Chairman, so I would just say to that, so looking at the quality of life program, those 3 candidates work directly with the individual. And it's a good place to start. It's, you know, so those are the individuals we know that are at a high risk or have been in enough that they're in our criminal justice system. And they're candidates that, you know, have had hard choices within their life, and are we providing a humane way for them to get out of that cycle? And so would it get to the individual on this QLC? So I thought it was a great program, what it is, and it really breaks it down to the individuals, not to say other programs are not, and it was just an opportunity, so it was also brought forward to me, so I just was bringing it forward to the boards.
Thank you, Dr. Kingsley. Manager Elders, you have a comment?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, thank you. Let me just walk the board back and refresh your memory just for a couple of minutes. This is a long presentation, so I don't intend to make it any longer. We presented to you several months ago, and we told you at that time what we were receiving in the way of funding, and that we would come back to you and present a plan forward that will include what we do today, what we hope to do in the future, and then establish processes for which providers and various community servers can come through and receive funds and work with us. This really today is that presentation. The Equality for Life program just happened to be brought to our attention, and in reality, a local judge and a former police chief came in and said, we currently have a program in place. It's operating exactly consistent, at least in my judgment and based on my understanding of this, with it would be consistent with what the opioid settlement was intended for. Once I heard it, I thought the timing was coincidental, but it was right that the board should hear it. Staff wasn't going to decide, but we saw an opportunity because of their timeliness and because of their need to present it to you for consideration. That is really why it's in front of you. There will be many more opportunities. We understand the need out there is significant, and the board will have the tools to make decisions going forward. This really, truly happened to be the first one. They operate in both communities. The judge, I trust, can give you some examples of their successes and what they do. So I thought it would be really important for you to hear it and for you to consider it. And where you go with it is truly up to you. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to give each one of the supervisors an opportunity to comment. Supervisor Johnson.
Yeah, should have picked me last. This quality of life court is a bunch of bull as far as I'm concerned. We keep making all these little courts and then slapping people on the wrist and then helping everybody out. These people you're talking about have been arrested, correct?
Yes.
And they've gone to court and been found guilty, yes?
I believe so, yes.
And we call it quality of life. I mean, I don't know where Mojave County has gotten off bringing all these specialty courts in. I have nothing else to say, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Kinsley, you said that the county health department is the county distributor for Narcan?
Yes.
Who do you distribute that to?
Recently, so we have a process, so it was just, it was from the state's a distributor, the state, we put in what any requests there are, so so far the distributions have been to individuals. Majority of those individuals have been for foster care, so foster care now requires you to, in order to do any type of foster care, to have Narcan within the home, and so those have been individuals that we've been able to provide to them on an individual basis that have contacted us because they have to show evidentiary proof in either to get to that next step. If you go to a doctor, then it's a catch-22. If you go to a doctor and get a prescription for it, then it's considered, your home is considered a high risk because you might have opioids in the home. And so we've been able to help alleviate that. On the outside of that, we have provided it to our community partners so far, the majority of those. So I believe Mojave County Community College, the law enforcement is looking to it. We are looking to put it into any AEDs that goes along with the cardiac. And those have been our major distributors, first responders with communities. So within our ambulances, as well as any of the packs, I believe. And then there's been a few businesses that have approached us to put it inside their AEDs for cardiac arrest, or so they know where it's located at if it was needed. And so far, those individuals have approached us for that.
So if you get it from the pharmacist, they're databasing you?
I believe so.
It does not require a prescription.
I'd have to see specifics, but this is just what's been explained to me for some foster cares, that if they went into a doctor and asked for a prescription, and it's also like $300 or something, or I don't remember what the price was, it was pricey, but on those points, so, yeah.
Checked it out.
Yeah.
Interesting. So most of it's going to foster parents then in law enforcement. That law enforcement gets it from?
I believe we've been working with foreign law enforcement. I don't know if they have since received it. It's been a lot of our first responders, our EMTs and rigs out there and fire department. There were two businesses, as well as any community organization, nonprofits, we provided for them to distribute as well. So any of our nonprofit organizations that work in behavioral health or substance abuse disorders, they come to us and we distribute it to them. They would normally get it from the state, but we cut down that week of transit. We hold on to it, then when they need it, they can get it within a day, for their program, if their program is going down, or like Southwest Behavioral or anything like that. Sure. We can get it to them within a day. That's all we did. We just cut out the middleman of the state to cut down time so they don't have to wait for the transport of a week or more.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Angus.
I just want to follow up on the Narcan. I mean, it's distributed throughout the community. You can walk in places and get it.
Yes.
I was at an event on a weekend with families, and they had a whole table full of Narcan.
Yep.
So, party till you almost die, and then we'll bring it back.
Yeah. And those are the nonprofit organizations that would have requested it from the state, but instead they just get it through us because we're the next governmental step down. So, yeah.
Thank you. Supervisor Bishop, do you have comments on the distribution of the opioid funds?
Of course.
Care to share them?
Yes, I would. Thank you. I'm a little confused as to what the difference is between the quality of life court and the drug court. And also I'm wondering if this shouldn't be ran through our reach out program and the use of this money go toward making the reach out program as good as it can be.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of doing the same thing. Are we duplicating our resources?
Yeah. And
so I see the judge is there on pins and needles, and I think he wants to explain to me the answer to the question that I just asked.
So just to address part of the carryover too, so in having worked with the reach out program, is that they're not to the point with the building and everything that we can begin to supply those funding for it. And that's what the carryover would be great for in a few years. So we know we have sufficient to be able to begin to support that as it ramps up. So I'm going to go ahead and turn
this funding be used to for the capital improvement on the building for the reach out program?
I'd have to look into exact capital improvement, but I believe it can be used for it. Yes. So I'd have to. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman. Sure. Supervisor Bishop, no opioid settlement funding will be used for the building. The building funding is coming through the grant that we already received.
Yeah.
And the design today and the cost estimate is consistent with the funding that is available. So we would not do it without board approval, but we do not envision using any opioid settlement on the building itself. However, we do anticipate, and when the building is up and ready and the program is operational, we do anticipate the board approving certain amount to support that program, the operation of it, not the building.
Okay, so the funding at that point could be used for staff, like a mental health professional or...
Absolutely, that is truly part of the plan. And
so
again, it will be up to the board, but we will be presenting. Our vision is to come back to you when the reach out program is up and operational, to assess what the needs will be and come back to the board, explain what we need, what the benefit will be, get approval and proceed in that direction.
So these monies, can they be held until the next fiscal year or the next, when the reach out building is ready to begin operations?
Mr.
Rather
Chairman.
than to use this money to do other little things that'll be duplicated once the reach out building is completed?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Bishop, yes, indeed, as you heard from Dr. Kingsley, we have asked and confirmed that we can carry the funds over for multiple years. So going forward, we see some funding, some opioid settlement funding going to support the reach out program, but not all of it. Again, that's what we envision recommending to the board. It will ultimately be the board decision to allocate the funding.
Thank you.
Supervisor Bishop, did you want to hear from Judge Huerta?
I do.
Chairman Lingenfelter, Supervisor Bishop, and the rest of the board members, thank you for the opportunity to get to speak. There's a couple little things I might be able to kind of clarify. One, Supervisor Angus, when we talked about only one or two of the communities, we started the program a couple years ago, as several board members or people may be familiar with. My background before becoming a judge was law enforcement for 25 years, 20 of those years working narcotics. So for Supervisor Johnson, I completely understand putting people in jail when they're convicted of crime. When I became a judge, I didn't want to just do the status quo of what we've been doing. I don't have any problem with that. In all honesty, prior to COVID, our court was probably at least the second or third busiest court in the state. Numerous of cases were involving drug charges. I started to pan out and check out how well we're succeeding and or not succeeding. I will tell you right now, 85% of our individuals who come through our court with assorted drug charges go to non-compliance. I don't have any problem sending those people back to the jail for 30 days for non-compliance and not following through. I don't have any problem sending them to jail initially when they make a mistake and they enter a guilty plea. What I did have a problem is for me doing the exact same thing I've been doing time and time again. So we come up with a fancy name of quality of life court for our drug court, basically. Silly to us, think what we're trying to do is improve individuals' quality of life. Hence why we named it instead of a drug court. Now, the limited jurisdiction courts are somewhat quite a bit different than the Superior Court judges. If we're going to have a probation officer, we have to get our own funding. If we're going to provide other type of services, we have to get our own funding. Some of you supervisors have been here when I've come here before, and I've asked you to accept the grants that we've applied for and that we were accepted. Every time we did those grants, people were in, where are you coming from? This is something different. Now, maybe they're naive to what happens at the Superior Court, but at least at the limited jurisdiction courts, they weren't familiar with this type of activity or this type of court. So we finally were able to get a couple of grants, and the board so graciously accepted the grants and allowing us to go forward with that. Well, guess what? We're not allowed that funds anymore. So we're trying to seek out areas to where we can continue what we're doing. Because as I stated, typically 85% people go to non-compliance. We're talking about individuals that we're seeing and dealing with no matter what. And I can understand the old huggy-feely, squeezy type of feel-good courts. That's not what I'm doing. What I'm trying to do is figure out how we don't get people to reoffend, how we don't get them back in our jail system, how we get them not to commit shoplifting again. But ultimately, my sales pitch for the individuals to get in our court is a life of sobriety. The drug court you have in Superior Court, their sales pitches don't go to prison for 7 or 8 years. So that's where we kind of come from the beginning of this. And our latest trend with our quality of life court has been the most successful because we've learned and we've gotten a little bit more resources to be more successful. And we have shown that success. Now, that's just a real quick of where we got to and where we're at. But when Supervisor Angus talked about Kingman and Havasu only,
We started it all because we wanted to do something different because I got tired of just sending people back to jail. So what happened from there is Judge Davis, she put forth that she wanted to be included. She wanted a quality of life. She wanted a drug court. And so we tried to receive grants to start expanding. And so we were able in our last grant, the one that's going to run out of funding and we're not going to be able to do this anymore, to expand to Lake Havasu. Our goals are to expand to all 3 of our courts. We think we have something unique, maybe because of the way we're doing it, but Washington, D.C., which I guess we can all say good, better, and different, are recognizing we're having 50 representatives from around the nation come watch one of our graduations this coming June in this building because you're correct. Dr. Kingsley's correct. Not many people have an idea what to do with some of these programs. When I went for our previous administration, when they had a little more foresight to kind of expand to see what we can do to stop or curb the use of opiate use and or other illicit drugs, we went to that, and that's where we got that money because we went around and most people around the nation aren't doing what we're doing. And we're not reinventing the wheel. We're just doing it in a different way, and we're doing it at the lowest level possible to cure negative behavior. And so we are one of the few ones that are having success, I guess. So that's why they want to come out and see us. I just want to keep on going forward with trying to make people not reoffend, try to not cost the county more money in our jail, and or potentially make more productive people for our county. I'm hoping, and I was told that this was the avenue that would fit that bill. And so that's when we sought out a meeting with County Manager Elters. And I do believe if we don't spend money that was given to us to stop opiate use and or continue drug use, then we're going to spend our county money by me putting people back in jail for non-compliance, which I still do for the majority of the people because most of the folks don't necessarily get to be in our court. And so if there's specific questions I could do, reference where it comes from, hoping where we're going to go, knowing that we're going to expand. We've had communications with the other municipalities for kind of be a county-wide joint activity.
So the quality of life court is just a new name for the drug court?
We call it a quality of life because we believe we are improving their quality of life by getting them off of drugs.
Does it replace drug court?
No, ma'am, it doesn't. Drug court is Superior Court. In Superior Court, they don't have to ask for monies for a probation officer. It's allocated within their funds. By statute, if a limited jurisdiction court wants to have a probation officer, they have to find their own funding. Some of the other resources that we've implemented since our final grant is why I believe we've been more successful in this last go-around. I would also state the reason for grants in the aspect, Veterans Court. Everybody believes veterans need help, and they actually do. The government's made it much easier for people to get monies from them to carry on forward with veterans courts. Well, drug courts aren't a romantic thing. They didn't serve our country to defend our right to be free. These are people, a lot of folks believe are in the position they're in because of their choices. Well, those folks are coming through our system one way or the other. I'm just trying to figure out a way they don't keep coming back.
Thank you. Supervisor Angus?
Thank you, and thank you for what you do. But this was one of the reasons when we first initially talked about it, I thought the easiest and simplest way would be to push it out to the nonprofits who actually work with the, because there's so many government, there's so many county and city ones, and everybody wants money, and they have different ways to get money. But again, at the end of the day, the money was to treat the end user. And I know that the people in the courts are end users, but we have so many courts now. So my issue was, how did yours come to be the one that was picked? And it is kind of like overlaps with the Reach Out program in a way.
We work with
but we have so many, we have now, thank goodness, so many facilities that now help and treat and have high success rates. So I was just hoping that they would be involved. This isn't really directed to you, that they would be involved a bit more. I think we're kind of making this a little bit more complicated than it needs to be, but that's me.
I would state we work with all of those different agencies. To be honest with you, the treatment when it comes to counseling, there are numerous times I see an individual multiple times and ask them how many times they've been through counseling, and they'll tell me multiple times. These are folks, and I would say we are working in a treatment aspect. It's a treatment court, so we are working in a treatment aspect. But if it doesn't happen, sad to say, I think we'll do away with a very good thing for our community, and I'll just send them back to jail again.
Thank you, Judge Huerta. Dr. Kingsley, can you come back up? I have a couple questions for you. Does the Public Health Department have strong connections with the nonprofits and the organizations out there in our 4 incorporated cities, Bullhead, Colorado City, Lake Havasu, Kingman, that are already doing this type of stuff?
I would say very much so, yes, especially with our, our OD2A grants. They work closely with the various programs out there that are working towards opioid abatement. They are, but they're tied to a grant. So I can't necessarily use them to hold a summit here for just our county, all our partners, or to go into, to really assess all the organizations, or really even have them come in for a meeting, just because their salaries are tied to those grants. And so I don't have a lot of, besides me just putting it all together and coordinating between each one, we have certain challenges on that with the funding. But do we work with them? Yes, we do.
You do?
Yeah.
In listening to my colleagues, I would agree with Supervisor Bishop. If there's going to be any direct county involvement, I thought it was going to be part of the reach out program. As I understood that, and I don't know this stuff as well as some of the other supervisors, but that's a voluntary program that somebody has to actually choose for themselves. And the thought process from my standpoint is, you have to take a little bit of accountability, and if there's a possibility to reduce the recidivism rate, which helps all of our taxpayers because we have to house them and clothe them and feed them and send them to medical, then I was willing to support that program. As far as the other service providers, I don't think that it's appropriate for the Mojave County to step on those providers' toes. I think that we should just push money out to these groups and let them do what they do best. I mean, I don't want to expand, I don't know if you call it expansion of government or not, but just keep it simple. I don't know. Supervisor Angus, did you have something else?
Yeah, you said that it was hard to get the stakeholders together. When we first started the reach out, when we were just beginning to talk about it, Don Bischoff isn't here, is he? We had people come in, and that was very, very important. We had law enforcement, we had, and to hear from them, what they think that this would be, how this could be utilized in a way. I mean, they survive on grants, right? So they know how this works, they know how to get it, they know where it goes. I just don't want to have government do what is already being done in the nonprofit sector is really all.
And I agree, it's just coordinating that, being able to actually do all that, coordinate those organizations that come together, bringing them all together, holding those meetings, then assessing them, having to do the presentations to bring to you, how to judge them, do we score them, do we do all that work, which is weeks and months of work. And right now, I'm the one available to do it just because of my salary, while my other staff is not. So how do I support that to do that for you? So that's the challenge. I can hold just one big meeting and have them come in and hear all their ideas and who want to. And then at that point, is it just free game? Do I just come with your complete list and you guys choose? What's the correct way to do that? And so that's why, one, I like that it's a slower process right now, that we can hold on to our money, hold on to it and see how things evolve. But there's challenges for my department to be able to deliver all those things because there's foundational work that has to be done. So how do I support that, on those things? If not, if we don't want to spend any of that money, then I would have to come back with possibility of a general fund of asking, I need this much in order to support that. So all this money goes directly to an individual and my department's able to deliver on those points. So those are the challenge here. I'm just trying to be as fiscally minded as possible and as least possible for those points, for those things. As for the presentation today with the Quality Life Court, it was brought to the county. The county brought it to me, so this was part of the process step here with it. I do think, again, it was was it a humane approach and help us reduce recidivism here in our county? I do, and it's just where we are not ready for the step-up program for 1 to 2 years. Are we saving more than 50% that we could put towards, towards our reach out program? And I don't think all that, even if reach out was here today too, would we then be putting 600,000 towards reach out? I don't think you'd want to do that either. It's going to be percentage, and we'd want to be able to, on those points or whatever. So is this an ability to be able to provide, the same thing what reach out is going to be doing? And they do work out with reach out, and to acknowledge Bischoff came to the meetings with QLC here in support of it. And just knowing too that in anticipation that we will be ramping up for the Reach Out program when it comes up. In the meantime, this is a program that is being recognized on the federal level and has been extremely successful with the candidates have gone through. Almost more than 95% recidivism so far that they have not re-entered the program, so over the last 2 years. So it was a good program? Yes, it was. Do I feel it was right to bring it towards you? I do. Do I believe all your questions and concerns are accurate? Yes, and that's why we're here to do that, to really fill this out so we do the correct thing, so.
Thank you. Other comments or discussion points from the board members?
I have a question. Oh, go ahead, Ron.
Supervisor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Judge, are you seeing the people that are in your court that are going to go to the quality of life court, are they generally seeing you for drug crimes or for thefts?
Well, both. We're allowed to do shoplifting, as long as it's not a victim crime. They don't have prior felony convictions. Our goal is to, to be honest with you, we've had special occasions where people have had more serious offense in their past, a felony conviction, possession of drugs, and we've allowed them to go through our court, and they've completed and find sobriety. But typically our goal is to find early offenders, drug charges. You have shoplifting or minor type offenses where drugs are at the base of it. And then not everybody gets to go in it because we do a screening through our probation officer and the people who desire to be in the court and have passed the screening, they get accepted into our court.
So then
they are the individuals we are going to be seeing anyways.
So then you put them on mandatory drug testing?
Correct.
You have to go to counseling on top of that. If they don't
Correct.
comply, then the PO yanks them and throws them in jail.
They bring them back and a jail sanction could be imposed if they're, we take steps. I mean, we all raise kids. Every one of our kids are a little bit different. But ultimately, if they continue to fail to comply, a jail sanction is imposed. If they continue doing that, then a revocation, and then they get a conviction and whatever full penalties that could happen to them at that time too.
So how fast do they get put in jail? If
First of all,
say they come up dirty on their drug test?
Well, I mean, I'd be amazed if everyone here hasn't been affected by somebody in their family or friends involved in drugs, to expect an addict to test clean right after they saw the judge the next week is kind of a la-la land. But if somebody were to fail to comply, we have the hearings every 2 weeks. If they're not complying with what the judge orders them to do, I could either have good faith and have them turn themselves in that evening, or I have the jail come pick them up. It all depends on the individual. If I believe they're not going to go turn themselves in, I have them come pick them up at the court. If I believe they've earned the trust because they've been succeeding at certain levels, then they can turn themselves in that evening, the weekend, whatever I deem appropriate. The hammer doesn't come down right away, unlike the people who are not in our court. The people who are not in our court go to non-compliance and I'm the judge. I told you to do something, do it. There's a penalty when you don't do that. The people in our court, we work with them, and maybe that's why we have that much more of a success rate.
To me, it seems that a lot of times we let them run too long before we throw them back in jail when they're on probation.
That could be the opinion of, you know who I get maybe the hardest reaction from for potentially being a little too patient, a little too lenient, is the fellow drug court members telling me that maybe, and they don't tell me how to be a judge, mind you, but it is sometimes a little open form of communication. But it's a team of the counselors, the probation, myself, and things of that nature. If somebody gets the ultimate sanction of jail, but ultimately I decide whether it's warranted or not. And trust me, we all know there's times when I'm not the perfect judge, and I don't know the absolute answer every time. Maybe patience for you is not patience for Judge Bishop. I don't know. I had 2 boys. And when I penalized them, I always believed I drew a line in the sand too close. And maybe I shouldn't have. But it's just like raising kids. They're a little bit different. And if it means this one goes to jail today and this one gets one more chance, then that's a case by case.
It just seems like they let them, if they come up dirty or they skip their drug test, it takes them several months to get them run down.
No, well, the time that a normal person not in our drug court goes to warrant could be taken several months. The time for the people who are in our court in non-compliance, they're typically showing up and they can go into custody far sooner than people who aren't in our court.
So what do you need the money for? Additional probation officers?
Probation officers are peer support. I tell you what, the peer support is probably the #1 reason I believe our last go around is as successful as it is. The other is to make sure they're complying with the terms of the court. The more we find out, I will share what our first drug court attempt was with counseling agencies. Their idea of success was for an addict to keep showing up at counseling. My idea of success for them to show up at counseling but test negative.
Right.
That's the only true measurement of success. And so.
Thank you, sir.
Supervisor Johnson.
Thank you. Judge Huerta, in our budget this year, we had this request from general fund. If this money comes out of the opioid money, will that request be withdrawn?
I'm trying to recall if it was the probation officer itself that we were seeking.
Yes.
We have, since we were probably led to believe we weren't going to get that, we have reached out for alternative sources for the probation officer. But yes, this funds is going to help us with maintaining our court the way it is going right now.
I have another question. Is a little bit to do with your court. You've been a judge for quite a while now. And over the years, are you seeing a steady amount of drug users coming through the courts? Maybe it's more, I don't doubt it's less, but over the years. Now, typically, you work the justice court, so we're taking the low-hanging fruit. Are you seeing, or have you heard, maybe if the Superior Court would share any information with you, that we're actually arresting any major drug dealers, or are we just taking the people that basically are victims of the drug dealers?
Well, there's twofold. One, obviously, we'll see them when they first come through, because our court has jurisdiction over felonies before they go to the Superior Court. I would state here, especially since over the COVID aspect, and I think you guys can recognize yourself, the more serious crimes have been coming up. Drug use has been probably at least a contributing factor to a lot of those more serious cases. There are definitely other larger cases being conducted by the law enforcement in this area. A lot of times people don't hear about it because law enforcement doesn't always say what they're doing. Obviously my background when it comes to narcotics, we didn't brag about what we did because we don't necessarily, some of those people are helping law enforcement for one reason or another. So it isn't as prevalent how much larger cases they're doing. What I would say for what we see is the low-hanging fruit repetitively will come back to the limited jurisdictions because they're not seeking to send a user, a small-time possessor, to prison. So I will see somebody with multiple drug offenses dealt down to a misdemeanor because the goal isn't to send everyone to prison. And if they do end up in the Superior Court, if they do end up on probation, and if they do not comply, they go to prison. So they try to save that aspect for the sellers, the people with larger amounts, the people who are maybe the bigger fish.
I guess what I was saying is I just don't see it in our paper. I mean, I see daily pretty much somebody arrested for paraphernalia or some small quantity, but I never see anybody being arrested for being a major drug dealer in Mojave County. That's all I had. Thank you.
If I can share one small thing from my previous career, and this is not a knock, there's only one potentially politically motivated department in the county. When I was in Magnet, we did numerous things. We didn't make a news release all the time for one reason or another. We just did our job. Maybe the same thing as with Bullhead and Havasu and Kingman. Now, Sheriff Schuster, every right to make sure people know that his agency are doing things. So there are reasons why law enforcement don't always put it out there that they're doing it, because did you know we had a mental well-being court? Did you know that we had a drug court before I started asking for monies? I just do it because it's the right thing. So that could be reasons why you don't see it in the paper.
Well, no, I mean, I would believe that the newspaper, we have Dave Hawkins who lives over at the court, that if you have a major drug dealer that's found guilty, he will report it. And I'm very aware of all of these little sissy courts that you guys have, that you just keep renaming. Thank you, Judge.
I challenge my manhood. That's all right, I'm just messing.
Angus?
Thank you. I was sent this, which was our original motion when we entered into the lawsuit. And I just want to read, just for clarity, so we know what we signed on to when we accepted the lawsuit. The recovery of any monetary sums received from this opioid litigation shall only be used to pay for the treatment of addiction, abuse, and overuse of opioids by citizens, residents, and visitors of the county, as well as to address and assist with the prevention and reduction of opioid abuse and addiction in the county. Examples of permissible use include, but are not limited to, the following payments toward the operation or staffing of substance abuse treatment centers in Mojave County that address opioid addictions, abuse, or overuse, the funding of substance abuse treatment programs in Mojave County that address opioid addictions, payments towards education and training in Mojave County to address the prevention and reduction of opioid use, overuse, and addiction, funding programs administered by the Mojave County Department of Public Health that address the treatment, prevention, or reduction of opioid addiction, overuse, or abuse, use by law enforcement for the specific purpose of deterring and eliminating the unlawful distribution or sale of opioids in violation of the law. So it was specific when it came to law enforcement of what it was for. So I just wanted to put it out there that maybe we are extending the definition a little bit to fit what we want when we really sort of narrowed down to treatment for end users. And that's all. I mean, I'm including reach out in that too. Like, you know, maybe we extended that a little bit too far too, and need to kind of keep it in the lane we said we were going to keep in.
And speaking to those points, Supervisor Angus and the board, so on each of these points, it's Exhibit A has up to K on all the things that can be used. They did match. It's allowable within the exhibit. And the ultimate, again, we'll verify with the AG, the state AG, that it does match, but all these points did match from my ask to the ask here from the program here. So it does meet all those points on those things, as well as many other things. Mine is just the operation, and, you know, to provide education, you have to have educators. So it's just, you know, there's challenges there and stuff. So, but those are allowed within the program as defined under the Exhibit A's, and for my program, J, and for his, D, under the exhibits.
Supervisor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't know that we're bound by law by the statement that the board voted on. That was a period of time before we could reconsider what we wanted to do with the money, unless
Yeah.
we're somehow bound by what we told the Attorney General. I don't know that that statement went to the Attorney General. I think that was just the motion that we voted on.
Yeah, no, it's just reporting. If, again, as we said, it's your discretion. If you don't want to fund these two things, you don't fund it. So we're just bringing it forward. These are the points. Do they meet the legislation? What it says in there, the exhibit that is said that we have to apply and report every year. How we're using that money, does it apply? Yes, it does. If you want to put it towards that, that's your decision.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Other comments or discussion points from the board or the county manager?
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Manager Elters.
Thank you. Really, it boils down to, this is an enlightening discussion. We needed to have it because we will have more of them as we go forward. The list of the exhibit that lists those items that qualify is long, and this program appeared to be consistent with it. What is in front of you is a request for about 20% of the funding that we have under opioid settlement. They are doing it now, and it appears to be parallel and similar to the Reach Out program. So if this is funded for a year, by then the Reach Out program will be up and running. It could be if it qualifies for the Reach Out program, it appears to be qualifying for this. So we just wanted you to hear it. Thank you for taking the time. Thanks for all the questions. It is really in your hands. From where I stand and my understanding of the opioid settlement restrictions, as well as the program, I feel compelled to recommend it to the board, but it's your final decision, and I thank you for listening.
Thank you, Manager Elters. I'd like to ask one question. I think Supervisor Johnson raises a good point. From my standpoint, it just seems like the county and other agencies pour money into these drug court programs and other programs, and the problem just keeps getting worse. And then you have what's happening on our border right now, which is complete unenforcement and drugs coming over like we've never seen before. Is it allowable to use some of these monies to go higher up the chain and to try to, I know that it's hard here because we're by Clark County, Nevada, and Maricopa, and whatever the supply chain is for those drug organizations. But is it possible to go up the chain and to support more in law enforcement to try to choke off the supply of this stuff? I mean, ultimately, it seems like no matter what public agencies do, it's defeated, and the drug problem just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. But
On the last meeting with this Chairman Lingenfelter, on the last meeting, to answer your question with the straight AG, that was one question they had concerns over, because this could be put all into law enforcement, and they advised against that in that meeting. That's just what I was sitting listening to in the thing. While they said it can be appropriate, they would be wary of putting all the money into law enforcement to combat it and not addressing the fundamental things below.
Sure.
That's what they said. The messenger
did they
here.
recommend? they recommended not funding, taking all the funding and taking it, or
Yeah, putting it all in, just taking it.
Did they still think that it was a viable strategy?
It's in there. It is. It's defined in the exhibits that we can support law enforcement in their efforts to diminish it within our communities. Yes.
I know we haven't had a lot of discussion about that, but at least in Mojave County, I'd want to send the message that we're going to do everything we can to just choke off that supply. I mean, once you're in the courts, I mean, that's like the bottom of the food chain, really, and these people are victims. I don't know what can be done on the law enforcement side to try to just really go after these people and just be, I know we're hard right now, but.
And I think that's the complexity I've been facing as just trying to really, how do I, what do I do on the back work to bring to you, and how do I gauge it? And it's immense. It gets pretty big on, on who do I evaluate and what programs and what's going to be most effective and do I, this, that, and it's a lot of work. I mean, it's a lot. I'm happy to do the work, and I'm not saying that at all. That's what I'm here for. That's what we're here for. But as you can see, as you get more into the weeds of it, it gets pretty involved. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Any other discussion from the board? Come on up. That's fine. Really, really quick. Thanks. Thanks, Kip.
Chairman Lincoln, members of the board. I know Supervisor Johnson was giving me the eye, so I had to come up. I recognize your concern. These programs, the drug courts that we have, the specialty courts, they tend to help individuals. They tend to help people make an improvement in their life. Does it stop the program? No. We see the drug dealers in our Superior Court. There are things happening there, but you get a few of them, and then there's some more that come back through. But I believe Judge Moss, our presiding judge, would be very supportive of this program with Judge Huerta. I just wanted to share that comment. It was approved by Judge Gertler when he was the presiding judge, and it is a program that's effective. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Kip. I believe staff proposed 4 motions. We're certainly not bound by those. Open to a motion or additional discussion. I think the first recommended motion was to set an opioid fiscal year of July 1st through June 30th. Is that accurate?
Yes, with indirect cost at 7% for Mojave County staff.
Indirect costs of 7%.
7%, yeah.
Open to a motion?
Chairman Lincoln-Felter, I will make that motion for discussion.
Thank you, Supervisor Bishop. You've heard that motion.
Second.
You've heard that motion. Second. Additional discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? You guys appear to have it ordered. So that's, we've got the fiscal year set with.
Yes.
Okay,
So,
great.
yeah, great.
Was there any discussion?
Oh, I'm sorry. I asked for discussion.
I'm sorry. I heard a couple of you vote, but I did not hear all of you vote. So I need to know who voted, who didn't vote, who voted which way. Please.
Can I back up if we need to do some discussion? We have a motion and a second. Can I entertain additional discussion, please? Yes? Okay. Supervisor Bishop?
Yes, I make the motion.
We already had a motion, a second, and a vote. I just need to clarify what that vote was. And then you can either reconsider that vote, take a different vote, but we've already taken action. So I just need to clarify that action first.
So my motion was to approve your recommendation for discussion.
It was a motion by Supervisor Bishop, seconded by Supervisor Angus. No, excuse me, for discussion.
You said you wanted to discuss it, so I made the motion.
You said you wanted to. I didn't say anything.
Okay, I withdraw my motion then.
It's already done. The order's already in place.
We already voted.
Reconsider it.
All I need to do is clarify who voted which way, and then Attorney Esplin can direct which way to go next.
I think they all voted in favor, but we need to have discussion. Supervisor Gould.
Mr. Chairman, if you can ask the clerk that the clerk is in doubt and ask for a new vote.
Okay, can we ask for a new vote?
I'm not familiar with that. I don't know that. But
You're
what
a
I would say,
parliamentarian.
what we typically see is if you want to
Senate.
I'm sure he did. But what I would say is, one, let's see, what did you vote for? I didn't understand what you voted for.
I voted for the chairman's recommendation, so,
Okay. And that was seconded,
yes.
and
by
then there was a
Supervisor
vote,
Gould.
and so now it's complete. If you want to reconsider that, you can. And I think what the clerk is just asking is who voted for it so that she has her minutes.
That's correct. So we all voted in favor of that. No?
No, I voted in favor of the motion to discuss. That's all,
Okay.
right? Because I thought that's
Yes,
what you
that's-
wanted, was a
that's
motion
what I
to
said.
discuss.
Make a motion to
It wasn't
discuss.
to approve this recommendation, it was just to discuss.
Well, I think we already had a motion. This is getting confusing.
Mr. Chairman.
We had a motion to approve, and then we had a second for discussion, right? But I think it had to be a motion.
No, the motion was for
Chairman.
Supervisor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the board reconsider its previous
Second.
vote.
Second.
Thank you.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? You guys appear to have it. So ordered. Okay. Now,
Oh, I'm not going to do that again.
I'll make a motion to set the opioid fiscal year budget July 1 to June 30th with 7% operating expenditures. Is that accurate, Dr. Kingsley?
Correct.
Okay.
Second.
Heard that motion in second. Discussion. Supervisor Angus.
Yeah, I just wanted, I mean, I would prefer to wait on all of this, but this one is just for your department, and so I'm okay with that, but
it's
going
for the
forward,
county,
I
too.
think we need
Yeah.
more time, but for this purpose, this motion,
Yeah.
I'll vote yes.
Any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed? You guys appear to have it, do have it. So ordered. Any other motions regarding any of the offered proposals or another proposal that we haven't been presented?
Chairman Lingfield, can I make a motion that we continue the discussion? Because I think this was a great first start at it, to see what everyone, the feelings of the board and what public health, is thinking, but I don't think that we're there yet. That's my opinion.
Is that did you make a motion?
Well, I guess the motion would be to continue this to our next meeting. Would that be enough time for everyone to get the information that they want? Okay, well, that's my motion, to continue it till our next meeting.
Thank you. You've heard that motion. Do I have a second? Item dies for lack of second. Do we have any other motion on this item? Hearing none. I suppose we'll move to the next item.
Thank you.
Item 49, Director Latosky.
Good afternoon, Chairman Lingenfelter, members of the board. Staff is merely asking under item 49 to acknowledge receipt of and refer to staff a petition for road maintenance for North Glen Drive. It's about a half-a-mile road in the Golden Valley area.
Thank you, Director Latosky.
Motion to approve item 49 is written.
Thank you. You've heard that motion. Do we have
Second.
You've heard that motion in second. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
You guys appear to have it. You have it so ordered. We've already done item 50. Item 51, Director Mornian.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the board. This is really, this is the third time this item's been in front of you in the last 6 weeks, I believe. This is really just housekeeping. At the last meeting, the board's direction was, that was voted on was to direct the treasurer and assessor to publish their fee schedule for reimbursement, excluding the collection of property taxes, specifically for fire districts, reimbursing the county. What we have done is gone ahead and calculated the hourly rate for the offices of the treasurer and the assessor, and then the attachment that is in the backup is putting those rates into the remainder of the fee schedule for fire districts that was already in as hourly rates for the recorder, for elections, and for financial services. And so this is just making sure it's all in one place, so it's concise, it's clear, it can be communicated easily to the fire districts, and they know what to expect.
Thank you, Director Mornian. Do I have a motion or discussion?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. You've heard that motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
You've heard that motion, second. Additional discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? You guys appear to have it, do have it, so ordered. Item 52, do we have Director Ursenbach or perhaps Director Latosky, someone from staff that's taking this on?
Chairman Lingenfelter, I can if you
Okay,
wish.
great. Thank you. It's okay, Steve.
Yeah, it's my understanding that Ms. Ursenbach could not be here today. She had an emergency matter. She was unable to attend. What this option is the city of Kingman is applying for a grant. It's called an Economic Strength Project Grant. It's with the Arizona Commerce Authority. And the purpose is to receive monies in order to improve roads. In this case, it's 2 unimproved roads at the Kingman Industrial Park. The city of Kingman will be putting up most of the money will be seeking most of the money, up to $500,000. But as part of that, there is a 10% match that is required. So whatever monies they get from the grant, then there'd be that 10% match. The city of Kingman would administer the grant. They would work with ADOT to do the improvement and do all those things. The obligation that the county would have would be to fund it, and we would do the match part of it. The up to 10% match is what the county would do. There's an intergovernmental agreement proposed, and that's the proposal is to, 1, adopt the resolution, which would be approving the intergovernmental agreement. And basically the city of Kingman would be responsible for applying for the grant, working through the grant, getting all the process to make sure that the grant is fulfilled. The county's obligation would be to fund the 10% match up to and not to exceed $50,000. That $50,000 would come from the Economic Development Enterprise Fund.
Thank you. And this, did I hear you right? This is within the Kingman Industrial Park?
It is. So that's in Mojave County, obviously the unincorporated area of Mojave County.
County Manager.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my apologies. I was supposed to cover this item for Tammy. She needed to be out for family matters today. I'm grateful that Attorney Esplin explained it. I'm happy to add any more info or answer any question you may have.
Thank you. Any comments or discussion from the board? Supervisor Gould?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, the county gave the city of Kingman the industrial park, but yet they still come back to us for money to build roads and to pave roads there. And it just seems kind of odd. If I give you something, I'm not expected to maintain that also. I think they should maintain it. They're the one that control that industrial park, even though it is in the county road system. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments or discussion? This is in my district. I'll make a motion to approve item number 52.
Second.
You've heard that motion. Second. Other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
No.
I believe the ayes appear to have it. You do have it, so ordered. Item 53, Manager Elters.
Thanks again, Mr. Chairman, board members. We have completed the recruitment process for Administrative Services Director. Consistent with how we've handled the department heads recruitments before, had a panel of 4 other department heads that worked together to review applications and interview candidates. They made a recommendation to me. I also interviewed, and we did select an individual to present to you. The name is Erin Schregengost. She is qualified. She will be a good fit. She is also a county resident already. She does have the skill set to serve the county well in this position. So she is here today. It is my pleasure to present and recommend her to you. And if you have any comments or questions for her, I'm sure she will do her best.
Great. Hello, welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for having me today.
Would you like to address the board?
Sure. My name is Erin Schreckengast. I am a resident of White Hills, Arizona. I have been a resident for about 4 years now. Currently, I'm a senior project manager for a gaming company in Las Vegas. I've been there for about 5 years now, but I've been in project management for about 8 years or so. I saw this posting online and I was very happy to apply for it. It looks challenging and rewarding, and I'm happy to bring my pride and passion from Mojave County with doing what I love with project management and process improvement. And I would love to answer any questions you have for me today.
Great, thank you. Questions from the board members? Supervisor Bishop.
Good afternoon and welcome. Welcome to Mojave County, and it's nice to see someone from White Hills coming on board with us. And the next item should interest you on the traffic lights. So my only question to you is, can you pronounce your last name for me? Slowly.
Absolutely. It's Schreckengost.
One more time.
Schreckengost.
Schreckengost.
Yes.
Okay. I'll try to remember that. Just welcome, and I look forward to seeing you aboard.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Supervisor Angus.
Just want to say welcome, board. Look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Other comments? Looking for a motion?
So since this young lady lives in my district, I'll make a motion to approve the recommendation of the county manager to appoint Miss Erin Schreckengost to the position of Admin Service Director, effective Monday, July the 10th, at range 29, step 2.
Thank you.
There you go.
I'll
Thank you.
second that.
For that motion and second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes appear to have it. Do you have it? So ordered. Welcome aboard.
Thank you for your time.
Supervisor Johnson, item number 54.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The board previously voted to send a letter to ADOT regarding the stop sign on our highway. Obviously, we got not a very good response from ADOT. So I thought maybe if we would send a letter to our legislative delegation to have them look into it, maybe we'll get a little more response. That's what I brought forward.
Thank you, Supervisor. Discussion? Supervisor Bishop?
No discussion, but I will make the motion to approve.
Thank you. You've heard that motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
You've heard that motion, second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Ayes appear to have it. Do have it. So ordered. Item number 56. We do have one individual that's signed up to speak, Mr. Chuck DeShazer, excuse me.
Yes, I'm Chuck DeShazer of over Topak Golden Shores. I'm here about item 56 about the abatement assessment appeal of my property. I met with Ron Gould about the problem that I have, and I basically confused him. So I've tried to narrow it down to what I would like to present as the reason you should throw out my assessment entirely. If you look at, you have the notice and order that I was presented with on the abatement to begin with. And what I'm finding on this is Mojave County Ordinance 2020-07 has not been followed in about 4 or 5 different ways. If you turn to page 5 of the ordinance that I have provided you with, it should be about halfway through. You'll notice item 4 at the top where I've highlighted notice shall also be posted on the property. That was never done. If you look at page 5, you can follow the highlighted portion where it says 9/13 of 22. No posting, no on-site posting is required due to verifiable certified mail delivery. That doesn't follow the ordinance right there. So it was never properly posted. Then when you go to, on page 5 of the ordinance, section 5 of that page, letter C has what's to be contained in the ordinance or in the notice. Well, item C says 30 days. If you turn to the second page of your handout, you will find that they've put 35 days. It doesn't say 10 days. It doesn't say 180 days. It says specifically 30 days under section C. Then under item 5, section H, it has that I have 15 days to file an appeal. Well, if you turn to the third page of your handout, you'll find that I was given 20 days to go to the Building Code Advisory Board, which in my opinion has as much right to hear the appeal under 2020-7 as the Tooth Fairy. They have no business on any of this. The Board of Supervisors is the only ones that should hear an appeal if you look at page 5 again, under section H. So, in my opinion, this entire notice and order is illegal, which going forward means that the demolition permit that was issued and the abatement of my property has no basis whatsoever. So therefore, there is no abatement, there is no assessment of the abatement because they have violated the law. Does the board have any questions of me?
Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Supervisor Gould since it's your item, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I got to taking a look at this with Mr. DeShazer, and the building department cited him both under the International Building Code and under our ordinance 2020-07. Those have different requirements. The timing, as Mr. DeShazer mentioned, the timing is different in them. The method is different. Who he appeals to is different. So we looked at this and I said, let me get you an appeal because a 2020-07 says that you appeal to the Board of Supervisors, not to the Building Advisory Committee. The building department needs to get this together and figure out how they're going to cite people. If you cite people under both of those, that doesn't work because they have different requirements.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but if you turn to your fourth page of your handout, I've highlighted at the top of the page. They've then sent me back to 2020-7 for the appeal that I'm currently standing in front of this board for. So obviously they're saying that 2020-7 is in effect. There is no amendment to it. There is no repeal of any of 2020-7. So all of the, I guess, things that are in 2020-7 have to stand.
I believe in the original letter, it said both, or not the original one, the latest letter.
Oh.
It said both of them.
Right.
They were citing you under the International Building Code and under 2020-07.
Right. If you turn 5 pages from the back, I believe it is, you can see that there was, 4 pages. There was initially posted on my property the abatement assessment. And then after they figured out that if that abatement assessment is followed under 2020-7, they then went out there and reposted 5 pages back from the back of your handout, updated notice of assessment where they've added on a second law. It's almost like they're using a couple of different laws, like some Chinese food restaurant, take something from column A, take something from column B, and you get wonton with that. You can't use two different laws and then just intermingle them and expect the public to follow whatever you happen to say.
So there lies the problem, that they've cited him under two different things that have different requirements, different people that you appeal to, and this is problematic.
Director Walsh, you want to come up and explain what's going on here?
Chairman Lingenfelter, members of the board, if the board will allow, I've got a brief presentation that will go through the history of this issue and address this question as well. I can get a little help from IT to bring that up. So as was mentioned, this is the appeal for the assessment of parcel 210-02-031. In the appeal is basically, as was mentioned in the appeal, overbilling in the county, and also that there was no proper service or no proper appeal. This all began with an application for a rabbit hutch with electric to be built on parcel 210, I believe it was 210, I just lost it there, on a vacant lot, 210-02-031. It's just north of I-40 off of the Franconia exit, just north of the Lake Havasu exit. This application was received back in May of 2020. Only one inspection was performed. It was for an electrical service. After that, no further inspections were requested and the permit expired. In 2022, staff went out to inspect the property to see what became of the permit. They found this water tank built on its side, covered over with the electric meter running into it. This was reported to building. Building went out, inspected it, did determine the structure to be unsafe. Notice was given to Mr. DeShazer on, September 7th, 2022, by certified mail. The building department operates on their dangerous buildings under the 2021-03. That's the building ordinance, and operates through that portion. So notice was given as directed through the International Property Maintenance Code, which is adopted through the building ordinance. So that notice was given. Mr. DeShazer, then here's the electric meter there, cord going into this water tank, into a pipe underground. A stop work order was issued. A notice was sent to the property owner. The notice and order identifies that this is a dangerous structure, gives options to abate the structure or get engineering to address the concerns of the building official, and basically gives those options or the opportunity to appeal that decision. Following this order, Mr. DeShazer did request a meeting, and I and the chief building official met with Mr. DeShazer on September 26th. Went through the issues, why this was determined to be a dangerous structure, also gave him the opportunity, or gave him the options to bring this property into compliance, which included a demolition permit to do it himself, hire an engineer to determine whether or not this was suitable for human occupation, and then also given the opportunity to appeal, which he did that day. One second. On the 26th, that same day that we met, he filed his appeal. That appeal was then scheduled with the Building Code Advisory Board on October 12th. The advisory board upheld the decision of the chief building official. Mr. DeShazer did attend that meeting and was aware of that result. The minutes from that meeting are here. We followed up, went out to the site, nothing had been done. So we then worked with our contractor to begin the abatement of that property. 2 days before the abatement, we went out to inspect the site and found that the tank had been cut in half, leaving a 7-foot deep, 10-foot wide hole in the desert. As you'll see with water in there. So definitely even more dangerous situation than what had previously been. 7-foot, 10-foot wide. Previously had been mentioned some safes. The safes were in there. They were used to form this makeshift floor. So on January 11th, the property was abated by Old Trails. As you can see, we had a loader out there, other equipment in order to pull this material out of the ground and to address it. The safes were all checked. There was nothing in any of the safes. Here's just pictures of material. Here's the final picture. So to address some of the concerns of the actual appeal, where there was no proper service or no proper appeal for the assessment, and that the county overbilled, here's the total final abatement cost, $4,244.19. The abatement cost of $2,446.89 was charged by the contractor. The contractor, that does include a reduction for the recycled fees. You'll see 26 and a half hours by office administration, 5 inspections, and then mailing cost and legal title reports in order to make sure that property had not transferred and make sure that we notify all the interested parties. Here's the contractor's invoice. You'll see the negative or the credit for $795.20. Here's their payment receipt. Here's a landfill receipt for disposing of the material. Here's a log of staff time put towards this project. The $50 rate is basically utilizing all of the rates and coming up with a rate that would fit all of those hours. And I can tell you that 26 and a half hours is well under what was actually spent on this project. That is a very conservative amount. This is up to the notice of assessment, and again, does not encapsulate all the time that has been spent on this project. This is the notice of assessment that was mailed, certified mail to Mr. DeShazer and posted on the property. As was mentioned, an updated notice of assessment was mailed to Mr. DeShazer via certified mail, as well as posted on the property. I believe that ends the slideshow. To address the question of which codes and that, the 2020-03 is the building code, and that's one of those codes that's adopted is the International Property Maintenance Code, which details the dangerous building process, including appeals and notifications. All of those requirements of the International Property Maintenance Code was met. The appeal that was requested was heard by the Building Code Advisory Board, as outlined in the International Property Maintenance Code. Also in 2021-03, it states that this code shall, to the extent feasible, be coordinated with all other county regulations, especially those pertaining to health, safety, planning and zoning, flood control, and similar regulations. But this code does not supplement or negate the requirements of any existing regulations. In cases where differing requirements exist, the most restrictive apply. The 2103 does not have the same payment structure that 2020-07 allows. The state legislature in their nuisance abatement statutes allowed for the assessment of properties as well as a payment plan depending on the amount of the assessment. If it was over $1,000, I believe it gave them 5 years to pay back. If it's over $5,000, it gives them 10 years and those things. So we adopted that payment schedule with our 2020-07. So in order to provide that conformance with state statute, with dangerous buildings, we will go through the abatement process using 2021-03, and then the assessment follows 2020-07. So when Mr. DeShazer appealed the assessment that was through 2020-07, which brought him before this board. So I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I'd ask Mr. Esplin to correct me if I've got anything wrong or left anything out.
Supervisor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't think that 2021-03 deprives the board of their right to hear appeals from 2020-07.
I don't believe it, Chairman, I apologize, Chairman Lingenfelter, Supervisor Gould, I don't believe it deprives the board of that opportunity, but it does provide with the offending party with the opportunity to appeal to the Building Code Advisory Board. And typically with dangerous buildings, we have always appealed those to the Building Code Advisory Board, just given the background and expertise of that Building Code Advisory Board. They have, and given the outline of the International Property Maintenance Code and the direction that it gives to appeal to that board.
But the rub is 2020-07 still exists. It was not repealed when we voted. I didn't vote
That's
for
correct.
it, but the majority of the board voted for that 18 building code. That doesn't automatically repeal 2020-07. So he still gets an appeal under 2020-07, which has different dates and that doesn't line up, so it's problematic. So whether that negates the cost of abatement or not, the board will have to decide.
And if I may, I believe it doesn't negate his ability to appeal to the Board of Supervisors. He appealed through the Building Code Advisory Board, and so he was heard at the Building Code Advisory Board.
Was he advised that he could also appeal to the Board of Supervisors?
He was provided with information that he could, basically the application that he was given gave the appeal that would go through the Building Code Advisory Board. I don't know that he was specifically informed that he could also appeal to the Building Code Advisory, or to the Board of Supervisors. But under 2020-07, as you mentioned, that opportunity would be available if he availed himself to it.
But he would have to know, he would have to take that upon himself to find out that existed.
He would. He did receive, as I mentioned, he did receive an appeal through the Building Code Advisory Board, and then did not wish to continue that to Superior Court. He did not continue after that appeal.
Chairman Lingenfelter, if I can jump in as well.
Attorney Esplin.
Chairman Lingenfelter, Supervisor Gould, I think you've hit on the issue. You really have. You've got 2021-03, an appeal of an abatement to an appeal of a notice of an order for abate to the Building Code Advisory Board. Then you have 2020-07, which is an appeal of the assessment. I think you've hit on the issue. The abatement here is done.
Right.
And that issue is over. Mr. DeShazer had an opportunity to appeal that, and he did not. That is done. The question now is the assessment. And the question is, can we now use the assessment on a different ordinance as you've identified? And that's the question for the board to decide. And if the board thinks that they can't, then the board says, no, we're not going to put this assessment on here, and you revoke the assessment, or you say that the assessment shall not stand. That's really the issue. I think you've identified it. The question is, can you go from 2021-03 to 2020-07? That's the issue. The two statutes are not in conflict with each other. They work together. And you see overlap in statutes all the time in criminal cases and civil lawsuits. You'll see in civil lawsuits, you'll see all kinds of different statutes or different theories that they're going off of that will have some elements that run on top of each other. That's not unusual. The question is, can he appeal his decision to the Building Code Advisory Board, but then appeal the assessment over on a different ordinance? Again, I keep saying myself over and over, but that really is the issue. I will note that Mr. DeSazier has been given due process. He's been given notice, and he's been given an opportunity to be heard. That's the basics of due process. And he appealed that. He gave that to the Building Code Advisory Board, and he made his argument. He made his position, and the Building Code Advisory Board said, we're going to rule in favor of the county. Now he's given further due process. He said, here's the assessment, and Mr. DeShazer disagrees with it, and so he has filed that with this board, and now this board is having that opportunity to hear that. And he's been given notice, he's been given an opportunity to be heard, and this is his opportunity here to contest the assessment. And this is for the board to decide whether to uphold that assessment or not. You can either uphold it, or you can say, no, we don't want to do it, for the reasons that Supervisor Gould has pointed out, and for the reasons that Mr. DeShazer has pointed out. On the other hand, you can say, no, we believe that this is proper, and do that. He can then appeal the assessment decision to the Superior Court. This is an appealable decision that he can make. That's straightforward, and that's what we have before the board today.
It's the pleasure of the board. You have 1 minute, 1 minute.
Yes, when I was here on April 3rd before this board on the assessment to begin with, if you'll take a look at right here, what I have highlighted, it's saying that the advisory board decision was to be provided to me, shall be provided to the appellant. And Mr. Esplin is saying, oh, I should have gone to, in order to further appeal it to the Superior Court as stated in the appeal form. And on top of everything else, I never had an expired permit. Here's the final approval again that I've shown you several times. So there was no reason for them to be out there on my property ever to begin with. There was never any complaint. In fact, what I was trying to get the board to see was the meeting of October 7th with Tim and Gilbert. If you look at the letter that he provided on the screen right there, it says that this signature was in error. How can it be in error? He wasn't there. His agent was there. I have a valid permit in place. They can say all they want, that they want to, I got it on tape, that they want to retract signatures from retired employees in order to make this an expired permit. If you'd like to go into further discussions on that.
So, Chairman, if I could jump in just
Yes,
briefly.
please.
I just want to remind the board, what we're here before today is the assessment. It's the appeal of the assessment. And I just want to emphasize that that's what the decision is for today, and that's what we need to stick with, so.
It's a pleasure of the board.
Chairman Lincoln-Felter.
Supervisor Bishop.
I do believe this gentleman has received his due process, and I make a motion to deny the appeal of the cost of the notice assessment for parcel number 210-02-031.
Thank you. You've heard that motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Heard that motion and second. Additional discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed?
No.
No.
You guys appear to have it. You have it. So ordered. Item 57. We have one speaker. Nancy Moscow, do you want to come down? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'm going to be speaking on behalf of the Kingman Elementary students of the Kingman Unified School District. I'm the chairman of the Kingman Republican Women Literacy Committee and have had a reading and writing program at the Club for Youth since June 1 of 2022. Our committee currently has 8 volunteers, and we were at the Club for Youth Monday through Thursday from 3 to 5 p.m. In October of last year, we got together a crew and on a weekend went in and painted the walls, put up curtains, and cleaned the floor. The room was not a pleasant atmosphere for the children, but we made it bright, sunny, and happy, a happy place for them. Our reading room was the cleanest and brightest room in the entire building, and these photos will show. We've had many children in Kingman who need our help in learning to read. We have experienced 10 to 11-year-olds that cannot read a 2-letter word, sight word. Statistics show that if a child cannot read at grade level by the end of 3rd grade, there is little hope that he or she will make it in today's world. In our first year at the Club for Youth, we saw a huge improvement in reading skills and building self-confidence in those kids. On my scheduled day at the club, I'd walk through the front door and 4 to 5 kids would run up to me and say, "Can I read with you today?" I was really looking forward to the summer program where we would have preschool children and get them ready for kindergarten. I was also planning on putting on a short play for the parents and friends of the students. The play was called The Three Little Elephants, and out of the 5 characters in the play, 3 of the children were already practicing their lines. We were also planning a note writing class where the children could sit down and write a personal note to a parent or a grandparent. We would help them be creative in their writing and express feelings to others. The Club for Youth closed its doors on April 28th, and we were heartbroken for the children. For some, the Club for Youth was their safe place. I'm hoping that the Kingman Unified School District will look hard at options to reopen the club or instigate a great summer program and include our literacy program. We're self-sustained. We have approximately 500 books ranging from kindergarten to 3rd grade and beyond. We have lots of flashcards and worksheets for all ages, and we're ready to go back and read with our kids. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. This is my item. I put this item on. This program is used by, I would say, 200 or more working families in the Kingman area, which is already very scarce on support for working families. The BOS District 1 office would be partnering with Superintendent Dorner and the district to get them through the summer until they have time to implement an in-house long-term program. And I would ask you to support this program that would help to get those working families through the summertime.
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Gould.
Mr. Chairman, I move that item 57 be adopted.
Thank you. You've heard that motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
For that motion, a second. Additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes appear to have it. Do have it. So ordered. Thank you. Item number 58. I also put this item on the agenda. And the reason I did a little research on this. If you look at other organizations that are the size of Mojave County or larger, most of them have now moved over and migrated to electronic plan review services. I reached out to a number of technical registrants and contractors within Mojave County to see if they would be supportive of something like this. 100% of the individuals that I talked to, both contractors and architects, engineers, would be supportive of this. As I understand it, they are able to both submit their plans. All of the departments at the county are able to review their sections concurrently. All the comments are logged. Exactly where it's at in the process is logged. It just keeps everybody on the same page. Hopefully it would expedite the process for projects and get projects turned around faster. I know that you guys are doing a tremendous job in your department as it is. I think this is just a business process thing that'll make you guys even more powerful. And it's fully supported from all of the technical registrants and contractors that I've spoken to. Did you have anything to address or to add to that?
Chairman Lingenfelter, I'll make it brief, and I appreciate you placing this on the agenda, and I apologize for not having updated the board previously on where we were with this. We've been working with IT for some time now on getting to just where you're aiming. We are actually looking for going live with our first phase of this in July, being able to accept electronic submittals and do those electronic reviews. First phase will be a lot of our more simple applications. That'll be our over-the-counter permits, hot water heaters, those types of repairs. And then we will begin phase 2, the more complicated house plans, larger plans, and that receiving those electronically. And basically being able, we'll begin phase 2, and we're hoping to have that complete and go live with that sometime September, October, in accepting all of those plans. So this has been a project that we've been working on, and I couldn't agree more that, yes, definitely we should be here, and we are making those efforts to get there. And definitely, at the latest, by the end of the year, we'll be up and running, having 100% electronic plan submittals and review and being able to be in this 21st century.
Will you bring that item back to the board to show the board how that works when that's all completed?
I'd be more than happy to, and definitely we'll bring it to the board to share it, but then we'll also be sharing it with the Building Code Advisory Board and inviting contractors to come and actually walk them through that process as well.
Thank you. Comments or additional discussion points from the board?
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Walsh, will people still have the ability to turn in paper plans for homes?
Chairman Lingenfelter, Supervisor Gould, absolutely. We have a number of folks here that still rely on that hard copy, so we'll definitely make that available to them.
Thank you, sir.
Other comments? Hearing none, entertain a motion. I don't think we actually do need a motion, so thanks, Tim, for the presentation. We'll move to item number 59, County Manager Elthers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members. Understanding this is the last item on the agenda, so I'll be brief. As you know, given the drought that we're dealing with and the impact on the Colorado River, the Bureau of Reclamation issued a near-term Colorado River operation draft supplemental environmental impact statement. The board, at a prior board meeting, directed staff to review it and provide a Mojave County response. We have been working with our legal counsel, Clark Hill, in this case, provided direction and outlined our expectations. They have generated a draft for you to consider today. We believe it covers the basis. It's consistent with what we told them we expected to cover. What we're asking you to do, hopefully you've had a chance to review it. We're asking you to approve the draft and authorize us to continue to work with Clark Hill until the end of the month when these comments are due, so we can update them, tweak them as necessary, and still submit them by the due date. And I'm happy to answer any question you may have.
Thank you, Manager Elthers. Comments or discussion points from the board?
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Gould.
I move that item 59 be adopted.
Second.
You've heard that motion second. I would just say thank you to Manager Elthers and those that have worked on the letter. If you read the letter, I think it did a good job to demonstrate that the SCIS did not really look at the impact, the true impact to the rural communities if their water allocations are reduced. Most of the valley cities that receive Colorado River water, they have some alternative water sources that the river communities just simply do not have. And so the impact on our rural river communities would be much, much greater, worse than to the river or the Central Arizona communities. And we want to make sure that point is recognized. I also want to share that the Mojave County Water Authority, I believe, is going to also be submitting comments, and I'm not sure about the city of Bullhead City or the city of Lake Havasu, but I know each one of those cities are also represented at the Mojave County Water Authority, so appreciate the letter. You've heard that motion in second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? You guys appear to have it, do have it, so ordered. We are adjourned.